Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live, and let me tell you something, chat. I regret to inform you that we were right. We were fucking right. I don't know how to tell you this, but Donald Trump didn't open the Strait of Hormuz, and there is no peace deal. And so, yeah, all that shit was dumb as fuck. Oops. Look at this shit. Somebody sold a barrel of oil for $83 last week. Like, what the fuck are you doing? What an absolute idiot. Holy shit. Things are not looking good, folks. And of course, but the stock market and crypto and stuff haven't actually crashed. Like, crypto is up. Gold is down a little bit. Silver is kind of down. Bonds are up a little bit, but like it's slow motion crashing. Like it rises really quickly, but then it really doesn't want to decline. What is this? What is this rise? What is this? Why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense. It's becoming more and more clear that the Strait of Hormuz is not going to open, that oil is going to be severely constrained. Donald Trump this morning issued another threat against Iran. Like, what are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? I don't know how to describe it. Does it feel like that most of the country is tranquilized? You guys get what I mean? Like, there's something wrong with everybody. Like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but everybody is like, there's a severe increase in just kind of brain dead behavior. I don't know how to describe it really accurately, but it's like, we're in a war with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The job market is terrible. The housing market is starting to decline. What's going on? Did Trump somehow get the Fed to do some secret open market operations in equities, or has Bassett running a buy program with $500 billion of government? I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. It definitely feels like there's something going on because, like, Brent crude is now at $116 a barrel. I mean, it's pretty much back up to where it was at the height, the Iran war peak. I see absolutely no fucking reason to believe that it shouldn't be higher. It's probably because the AI spend is keeping markets afloat. But OpenAI just missed their numbers. What are we saying? I mean, this is where, like, whenever you feel like I do right now, I'm missing something. I'm legitimately missing something. It's not that I think the markets are perfectly rational, okay? It's just, there's not even really, like, the counter case is just wishful thinking. Like, the oil market is not like tariffs, okay? It's not like tariffs where Donald Trump can just, like, put them on and then put them off, right? That's not how it works. There's two parties here. Iran is there. Iran can just keep the strait closed. How much of a market movement is individual traders and how much of it are big corporate movement? I mean, the answer to that is it's, more money is in the hands of big wealthy than in the hands of individual people. AI is showing a lot of, AI is the thing about the LLMs, the large language models, is that I think the best way to think of them is like, in Star Trek, when they're like, computer, explain to me the history of this culture, and it spits out some sort of thing. Computer, make me a game where there are big booby Klingon ladies trying to kill me. Computer, that's what it is, and it's not very good. 500 cigarettes. Oh yeah. As much as I hate Orwell or Orville or whatever the fuck it's called, I do think it is more of a Star Trek show than most of the Star Trek after Voyager. I keep trying to watch Orville, but it's so fucking liberal. I can't. I just keep bouncing off because it's so fucking liberal. Like it's like the liberal version of Star Trek. I get it. It's like somebody who understands the form of Star Trek, but was explicitly rejecting its politics in favor of something that is like if Kamala Harris was president. This is off topic and I have to go to work, but this is some extremely evil shit. I mean, yeah. Wow, conservatives are doing evil shit. Who knew? Oh, oh man, they don't want local control. Oh man, they don't believe in local control and federalism. Oh, conservatives were lying about believing in local control and federalism. This is my shocked face. Wow. Conservatives lied about local control and federalism and federalism. This is my shocked face. That's why you should not believe in it either, because it's bullshit. New SCOTUS decision could erase 24 House Deb seats. Oh, what's this? Supreme Court Voting Rights Act ruling opens door for southern states to redraw map. Did this actually happen? Did this like actually happen? There it is. Voting Rights Act narrowed by SCOTUS. Seismic decision. Narrowing Section 2 fundamentally loses the rules of redistricting and gerrymandering. Expect years of aggressive map redraws, legal battles, and partisan hardball before a new status quo emerges. Buckle up. I mean, how do I feel about this? How do I put this into words? There's a fact in my mind that I want to communicate, but it's a difficult fact to communicate. How do I communicate this idea? What specific policy should I bring up? Let's just say that, how do I put this? There is a large population of Democratic Congresspeople in these gerrymandered seats. So these who are extremely corrupt. And they do things like, hey, open presence, what's up, brother? Thanks for the 25. They support policies like opposing the step up in basis, tax loophole being removed. They are oftentimes very pro Wall Street. There's a lot of people in these districts that are extremely corrupt. And that's kind of generally my my reaction to that is short term, this is probably really bad. U.S. Supreme Court rules against black Louisiana voters who defended voting map that added second majority black district. Blacks wanted a racist all black district that got, guys, I think one of the things that we have to understand and what should be understood very clearly is that conservatives are the enemies of humanity and should be destroyed. I think that's the one thing that we should be aware of. That how James Clyburn protected his district at a cost of black Democrats. Yeah, we know. This is an example. James Clyburn worked with the Republicans to make sure that South Carolina was gerrymandered more for Republicans so that his seat was safer, eliminating a swing seat. I mean, my general feeling about this situation is that Democrats should be more willing to play hardball. And America's Constitution is out of date.
Zoran Mamdani decided to make the most of his mayoral position this week by taking the bold step of whitewashing war criminal Barack Obama.
I think one of the things that I would say in general about anybody who considers themselves to be a Maoist in America is that that's just really a form of liberalism. And it's very much about individual, it's about an individual expression of your own morality, right? And there is, it's ironically a kind of an elitist mentality because they're not even trying to form any kind of vanguard formation. It's more like, I'm going to talk about politics in the most laughably stupid way, which is like, Zoran Mamdani is not whitewashing Obama. Obama is giving credibility to Mamdani with Democratic voters who are like normal people. Now, you could agree, I could agree with you 100% that Barack Obama is a war criminal and committed all these crimes. That's a factual statement. But to be like, oh, the former president is being platformed by Zoran Mamdani, it's a funny way of looking at politics and kind of a stupid way because they're platforming us, not the other way around. And people that like Maoists like that, what they try to do is they try to interpret things in a way that is most damaging for the left, right? It's like, I'll give you an example. I'm on Twitter, right? I have a Twitter account. I post on my Twitter almost every day, probably every day, to be honest. That is owned by criminal Elon Musk. There's two ways to look at that. One, Elon Musk, Mike is using his platform against Elon Musk's will to spread anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist propaganda to millions of people who would otherwise not hear it. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is Mike the sellout is using Elon Musk's platform, thereby increasing the wealth of Elon Musk and damaging the movement by participating in an evil platform, right? So which makes more sense? Which perspective makes more sense? They're both equally valid perspectives. Which perspective makes more sense? And I'm going to tell you, there's a correct answer. The correct answer is I'm using his fucking platform to spread my message against his will, which pisses him off. A world where I disconnect myself from Twitch because it's owned by Amazon, and I turn off my stream, or I don't post on TikTok because it's owned by the Ellisons, or I don't post on Twitter because it's owned by Elon. That means there is absolutely no communication or organizing going on. Our ability to use these platforms for our own gain is a asset, not a moral failing. It is us using the tools of the master to defeat him. Now, obviously, I would prefer to have even better platforms and tools that were, if popular, that were outside the control of capitalists. But it's just a nonsensical baby shit way of looking at things. I can't believe you used American dollars to buy yourself lunch. Like, every single action is not because I'm participating in it, therefore I get moral opprobrium. Grow up. Grow the fuck up. You're on Instagram. He posted that on Instagram, enriching evil Zionists at Meta, who routinely ban pro-Palestinian accounts and censor pro-Palestinian accounts. I can't believe you're enriching Meta by posting Mao communist news on Instagram, you evil sellout. Do you see how this is dumb as fuck? Do you see how we can do this forever and always? And it's always an escalatory spiral of just pointing at each other, calling each other sellouts to posture. What are we fucking saying here? Now, if Zora Mamdani says, I love Barack Obama's foreign policy, especially the way he bombed Doctors Without Borders Hospital, and I agree with all of that, and the war on terror is based, and I support that. If that's what's going on, well then yes, Zoran has sold out. You sell out when you change your policies. That's selling out. It is not selling out to have Barack Obama come to a kindergarten classroom to read a book and shine you up. Josh Gottheimer and Matt Lawler are introducing a bipartisan House resolution condemning Hassan Piker and Candace Owens for spreading anti-Semitism. That's funny. How do Maoists square Mao meeting with Henry Kissinger and Nixon? Maoists don't really like Mao. Maoists don't really like Mao. It's kind of a misnomer. You probably like them more than you should because they don't really like Mao. Maoists are really talking about the type of politics that was preeminent during the Cultural Revolution. Basically what Maoists want to do is have the Red Guards, but in America. They don't really like Mao as Mao. They don't really agree with Mao. They just want to do the Cultural Revolution again. That's basically how you should understand their politics to be. Kennedy got cooked, fake progressive. What's going on with Instagram? Loading like shit. Oh, I don't like this fucking idiot. I don't like Schlossberg. We don't need to talk about him, do we? They're the same leftists that called the USSR social imperial. No, they're not. I mean, they probably would. I don't fucking know at this point.
Your jobs. I sold my soul, and I work for a defense contractor. Damn, you work for a defense contractor? Wow.
Oh, I saw this. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about Lockheed liberal trans people. Like, can we stop? Can we stop? I wish I could issue a fatwa. I wish I could issue a fatwa where you stop saying anything that's annoying is of the left. I wish I could order this fatwa to be spread all across the internet, which is if you find something annoying, point at the annoying thing and say, hey, that's annoying, and stop associating it with the left. Hey, that person's a trans military contractor. They seem pretty dumb. That seems contradictory. That would be what you should say. Don't talk about it how it's part of the left. And surprise, surprise, trans people can be all sorts of contradictions. Being trans doesn't make you some sort of angel who's sinless. Would you look at that? You can be a trans imperialist. Would you look at that? Standpoint epistemology or identity doesn't make you a good person. Wow, we figured shit out. What about leftist audio? That's acceptable because it's funny. She called herself a leftist, which was funny. I don't care. I don't care. Mike, I've been thinking about your thoughts on, by the way, that is a conservative op video. I'm sorry, but that video is like bonus hole. It's a conservative op video. I don't interact with that shit. I almost did this morning, but then I stopped myself. Actual Zoran news. Yeah, I saw this. Yeah, this is really bad. This was really, really bad. Really, really bad. What the fuck went wrong here? More red button, blue button discourse. Oh, by the way, I think everybody who pressed the red button, anybody who pushed the red button should be rounded up. Unironically, I think we should round up anybody who argues for or push the red button. And you'll find that only evil people get arrested. I would actually, this is actually a really good thing that we should do. This is actually a really good thing where we like pretend it's real and then we get somebody, we put them in the room, and if they push the red button, they get arrested. They push the blue button, they go free. And we go, that was a test of your solidarity with humanity. You failed. You no longer have freedom. You're under suspicion. Who would want to live in a world where people pushed red? Well, that's part of the reason why I pushed blue. But the thing is, like, I don't want to just push blue and then win, which, by the way, blue wins. Every time this question is asked, blue wins. Usually gets around 60% of the vote. So every time blue wins, I want to go and now arrest everybody who posted red. Because there's a concept chat called the iterative prisoner's dilemma. Right now, there's this idea of the red versus blue button. Red button versus blue button solved. I need to do this. So this is not a dilemma. It's very easy. You push the blue button.
Understand it. It's a thought experiment that says everybody in your country has to push a blue button or a red button. Don't ask me why it's not important. Everyone has been told that if more than 50% pick blue, everyone lives. If not, if less than half of the people picked blue, then everyone who picked red will live and all the people who picked blue will die. Which would you pick, red or blue? What's the most rational choice? And then they added a complication saying that every household sends one person to pick. So for example, a mother wouldn't just be picking for herself, but she would also be picking for her husband and her kids. Now, I thought the obvious answer was blue, because if you walk in knowing that if most people pick blue, everyone will be fine, we're clearly all going to pick blue. But not only did most people pick red...
By the way, that's not true. That poll only has 104 votes. I saw a bigger poll that had thousands, and people pushed blue. This has 104 votes. This is to... I'm guessing Henry Shevlin is some sort of conservative, or at least like a somebody who has like a following that is like full of, how do you pronounce it? Henry Shevlin. My guess is this guy is some sort of, okay, yeah, AI guy. Yeah. Okay, so most of this guy's followers are going to be kind of like tech bro-y libertarian types, right? So this only has 280 votes, right? But I saw a, I mean, obviously those guys are going to push red, right? Obviously. So that's part of why everybody who pushes red should be arrested. You know, here it is. Here's one that has 98,000 votes. 98,000 votes, 57% click blue. Now, what I want you to understand is this is reality, right? Because the reason why you push blue is very simple. Because some people are going to push blue by a mistake. Or some people are not going to understand the consequence. They're not going to go through the whole rational thing of, oh, if everyone just pushed red, we all live. They're going to push blue because they hear the idea of like, oh, if blue wins, we all live. They're going to push blue out of solidarity. So just understanding that, I would push blue because there's no incentive to push red. There's no incentive to push red. Why would you push a button that could kill people? Pushing blue means nobody dies. Pushing red means some people will die. Some amount of people are going to die if you push red. So there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to push red. And if you push red, you are an evil coward. And you should probably be eliminated. And that's kind of how, so that's how the prisoner's dilemma gets solved, right? Let's take a look at the prisoner's dilemma real quick. I talk about this because the prisoner's dilemma is an idea in philosophy, which tries to explain why people betray each other. Right? Oh my God. Why can I not just, please, for the love of God? Okay. So it's called game theory, right? And the prisoner's dilemma is this. You and I are criminals and we both get arrested, and the cops, they have not very good evidence on us, but enough to probably get us convicted of like a minor crime, right? Couple years in prison, right? But they know we committed a worse crime. They have a suspicion we committed a worse crime. So they put pressure on us and they say, hey, if you betray your cohort, you'll go free. And they'll get, you know, some X amount of extra time in prison. Now, this specific one has 3 years, right? And the other person go free. Typically, the punishment is like 20 years or 10 years. Some sort of significantly worse punishment, right? Now, if both of them are given this opportunity at the same time. However, if both people betray, they'll get a worse prison term than they would from remaining silent, right? Because the other person will testify against you, you'll testify against them, you both get punished for a worse crime, but you're rewarded for cooperating, so you get slightly better situation than if both sides, if only one side had betrayed, if that makes sense, okay? That's the prisoner's dilemma, right? Which is, should you snitch? Should you snitch? Now, in the prisoner's dilemma, what happens is we get a suboptimal. The answer to that is, if you go through it rationally, you'll find that you should always betray. Because if you betray and the other person doesn't, you go free. But if they betray and you betray, well, then it's better than if you had cooperated and they betrayed, right? See what I mean? So it's always rational for you to betray. So what happens is both parties realize that and both parties snitch, which results in 4 years of prison time in this example, which is more prison time than every other square. So as far as time served in prison, both betraying is the worst outcome, and yet the worst outcome is the rational choice, right? So that's the prisoner's dilemma. The best case scenario is we both cooperate and we both serve a small amount of time in prison, right? Because that's only 2 years of prison served. If one of us betrays and the other cooperates, that's 3 years of prison served. And if, in this example, if both betray, it's 4 years of prison served. So what we should want is both people to stay silent, right? That's the prisoner's dilemma, which is, and this could be analogized to any kind of behavior where one person can scam or betray another, right? It's like, why should I cooperate with you? Why shouldn't I always scam you or betray you? And this is why laws exist. And this is also why the mafia exists. Why does the mafia exist? The mafia exists because of this problem, right? You're a criminal enterprise. You want your criminal enterprise to keep going. You say, hey, if you betray your fellow mafia member, we'll kill you. But if you both cooperate and keep your mouth shut, we'll take care of you and your family. We'll make sure that your time in prison is as comfortable as possible. We'll pay your family's bills, and we'll take care of you. So that's what the mafia does, right? You snitch, you die. If you cooperate, we'll try to help you as much as we can. We'll mitigate the punishment. So that's why the mafia exists, because it is a way of dealing with the prisoner's dilemma, right? And creating an incentive to never betray. And that's what I want to do with the button, right? I think that we should have a cultural expectation that if you're a red button pusher, everyone hates you. If somebody comes out and says, I vote for the red, everyone should hate that motherfucker. Everybody should pants that motherfucker. Everybody should hate that motherfucker and shun that motherfucker because he's telling you, I'll betray you for no gain. That's some cowardly ass shit. I push the blue button and I push it hard. And there's no doubt in my mind that you should push the blue because there's no goddamn reason to push red. There's no reason to push red except cowardice. It'd be one thing if pushing the button gave you $1 million fucking dollars, in which case I would push red because I knew a bunch of you greedy motherfuckers would push red. And then everybody would push red because they were incentivized to push red and no one would die, right? But in this case, there is no incentive to push red. It's just kill the people that pushed blue. That's not enough of an incentive for people to push. Therefore, I'm pushing blue to save the lives of the people who push blue. That's why I push blue. And I don't want to live in a world with the red button pushers, quite frankly. That's why I want to go and arrest them. I want to create a cultural expectation that if you push red, you're a scab. If you push red, you're a fucking scab, and we hate you. And if you advocate for pushing red, you're a scumbag, and we hate you. I don't want to live in a society of red button pushers. So that's how you solve that, right? We need to make a mafia of the blue. We'll kill your ass if you push red. If we find out you're advocating for pushing red or you're a red button pusher, after we push blue, we're going to come kill your ass. And you'll be self-selected because you're an attempted murderer. So we'll be punishing you for attempted murder, you fucking scum. Mafia of the blue. Oh yeah, and The Dark Knight, the Joker did the same thing, and nobody blew up the fucking... No one blew up the ship. People refused to blow up the other ship. And by the way, this is why humanity's gonna make it. This is why humanity's gonna make it. Humanity's going to make it, not because the tech bros are only small group. That's only 280 votes. The reason why we're gonna make it is because we're in the majority. We're overwhelmingly in the majority. Even with so many people trying to push us to push red, we ain't pushing red. Blue Mafia gang. For now, the world is getting dumber, Mike. No, the world, well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you evil. They're trying to constructively make you evil. I've noticed a lot of red pushers are highly defensive. Yes, they're cowards. Conservatives are cowards, selfish, and scum. Really. Actually, like every single person I've seen advocate pushing red is a scumbag, with no exception. Everybody who advocates pushing red is a scumbag. The 20K vote one is in line with this. It says 57, 58% is norm. Yes, and that lines up with politics, by the way. Is Hassan Piker right about Hamas? 900 views. You just gave this video so much more exposure by linking it in my chat. I almost want to time you out to protect the view count from going up. 64 views. Fa. We're like giving him too much motion, guys. Stop it. All right, anyway. So I just wanted to... Do you guys understand what I'm saying? We need to start the Blue Mafia gang. The Blue Mafia gang is we kill everybody who wants to push the red button after the blue button wins. And everybody knows, and everybody should know, that if there ever is that type of situation where humanity, where you're put into a position where you could kill other people to save yourself or cooperate and save everyone, and you choose to save yourself, we're going to come and find you, motherfucker, in a video game. Blue Mafia gang. Society is about building a world where everybody pushes the blue button without asking, without reflection. That's what the world is about. It's about living in a world of people that will push the blue button without hesitation because they understand that if even one person pushes blue, I need to push blue. If even one person accidentally pushes blue, I have to push blue. That's the world I want to live in. I do not want to live in the red world, the red button world. We live in the red button world today. We live in that world where people rationalize selfish actions that hurt other people, oftentimes for no gain for themselves. That's American politics in a nutshell. I'm creating a different type of world, and that means we've got to punish the red button pushers. We have to make people intimidated and scared to even bring up the idea that they would push the red button. They should understand if they push the red button, they are a fucking persona non grata freak. Save the guy who pushed blue because it's his favorite color. Save the fucking suicidal guy who pushed blue because he wants to die. Anyway, I'm sorry I had to go off on a rant there. Blue Mafia gang in. We're going to make it painful to be a red button pusher. I swear to fucking God, if I find out you're a red button advocator, I'm fucking coming for you. No joke. No cap. If you're a red button pusher, you cannot be my friend. Literally. I'm not even memeing at this point. I'm like literally serious. If you're a red button pusher, you are not my friend. Like this is, I'm not even kidding. If you advocate for the red button, you are not my friend. We have no solidarity and no friendship. It's like literally that serious. I abandoned my red button pushing friends. Good. And the reason why it's important that we make this point is because that is the crisis is the collective action problem, right? Which is the only reason to push red is out of fear. And because of fear, we have created a risk to our fellow man. Let go of fear, you fucking cowards, and join together in the serenity and the certainty of knowing that humanity cares for one another and push the blue button.
Detective, because what the hell you mean we caught somebody with 40 terabytes of CP? I pull up to the police station. Bail out the truck. We didn't caught a motherfucker with 40,000 gigs? So the only logical response to this is to bust 40,000 wigs. Somebody out here doing freak shit to the innocent children. Well, sir, what if they weren't innocent? Motherfucker, did you just ask me a motherfucking question? No, sir, I was just... Nope, we got one.
Call Big Terry.
Big Terry pull up, evacuate his rectum from his body, and vacuum up his teeth from his gums with it. Detective Quan, this is wrong. My husband has a great... Nope, we got another one.
Call Barquidis.
Barquidis pull up, seal this bitch lips with Gorilla Glue,
Barquidis?
And seal up her coochie with concrete.
If we found...
Barquidis? All right, the coochie... Okay, now we're going Pulp Fiction, okay? We're going too far. Barquidis? That's a good name, though. I like Barquidis. Barquidis, that's a good name. All right, where was I? Okay, so what else is going on in the world? Oh, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna fucking die. How is everybody feeling today? Feels like shit. Donald Trump is like, yeah, Donald Trump threatens more war at blockade for indefinite period. Cool. I just had my second child. I'm doing fantastic. Congratulations. Get sleep while you can. Wow, they're not talking about the most important story of the day. Cool. Am I the only one who doesn't give a shit about the King Charles speech? Is this something that we're supposed to like care about? Like legitimately, I don't know what else to say. Morning Joe did like a full half hour of airtime. Who gives a shit? Prediction market bets on the Iran war top 2 billion. But people want you to, NBC News want you to subscribe now? How long has that been going on? Donald Trump threads Trump threads Iran with AI picture of himself with a gun. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. President DJT. No more Mr. Nice Guy. It's so funny how he has like this short-barreled like mall ninja AR in the like the AI made him a mall ninja AI with a front post. It made him like a $400 AR build. The short barrel that has a front post. Fucking amazing. Anyway, the post comes as the crucial Strait of Hormuz stays blockaded as the status of talks with Iran remain uncertain. We have all the cards. Yeah, I know. What do you want me to say? Agribusiness. I think the thing that's like people don't even seem to care. Like this is the president of the United States of America, guys. The president of the United States of America is just this. I mean, it's not even newsworthy at this point.
Our friends on the right need to contend with this hypocrisy and this double standard. A message for our friends on the left now. You have to face some ugly realities about the acceptance of violence among too many people in your ranks. Here is a left-wing streamer on the Twitch platform with whom Democrats, this is a gentleman with whom Democrats have campaigned and sat for interviews with and platformed and much more. This guy.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay?
When you say Hamas is 1,000 times better, do you actually mean that? Or is that a rhetorical move or like a solidarity signal? Like what?
I mean, it's all of the above. I do mean it. I think it's a rhetorical move because it frustrates.
Part of the reason, like I don't act like a politician with the stuff that I say, but I also understand that there's certain that we have to act as politicians, right? So when we say stuff, like is Hassad Piker running for office? Even if he was, like what are we saying? What's the point here? Oh my God, you're not allowed to say that Hamas killed less people than Israel. That's a fact.
A lot of people, I've also said I'm a harm reduction voter, I'm a lesser evil voter, and therefore I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time.
Doesn't matter if rapes happen on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. The Palestinian...
These are literally DGG clips.
Resistance is not perfect.
He also said...
Just him saying the Palestinian resistance is not perfect? That's a clip? How is that a clip? How the fuck is that a clip? That's a different clip. How the fuck is that a clip? I mean, isn't it amazing how all these cable news networks are basically the same thing? They're basically the same fucking thing. They're obsessed. They just repeat the same exact talking points. It's all right out of the Fox News playbook. It's funny how so many people, like, if you go by the polling between, like, 15 and 25% of people know who Hassan is. And yet he's been in the center of discourse on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News for weeks now. It's almost like nobody watches that shit. He gets more motion from being on Twitch and on TikTok than he does from the mainstream news.
Said that the United States deserved 9/11. He apologized for that, and he apologized for what he said about Rick Scott after he was suspended from Twitch. But his comments made seemingly in support of Hamas's terrorist attacks on October 7th, in which innocent American civilians were killed. No apology there. We can't pretend that the corrosive impact of such sentiments being normalized isn't happening. It seems quite apparent to many political observers.
By the way, chat, this is a story that I want to do a coverage on, which is like the reason why the economy is also not completely exploding because of the Strait of Hormuz closure is because of China. China prepared perfectly for this eventuality because they've been trying to prevent the Malacca dilemma. The Strait of Hormuz being blockaded is basically the same thing as if the Strait of Malacca were blockaded for China. So they've been preparing for years and years and years and years. And just now, China is electrifying freight trucking, which I don't know if you've been paying attention to electrification of transport. This is one of the major impediments to making transport completely fossil fuel free, which is like heavy trucking needs diesel engines, right? I don't know if you remember, like 5-10 years ago, Tesla said they were going to do a Tesla truck. Remember that? They canceled that. That was just hype. But in China, they're actually doing it. Surprise, surprise. China is ditching diesel trucks. Freight trucking has long been considered a poor fit for electrification. Semi-trucks are huge and they pull very heavy trailers and therefore have very poor aerodynamics. Those three things are notoriously the kiss of death for regular EVs. Ford's F-150 Lightning could tow only about a third as far as the gas-powered version of the same truck. GM's Silverado EV is the only consumer American EV that can tow serious distances, and that's because it has a preposterous 212 kilowatt-hour battery, meaning it weighs around 9,000 pounds, and that's for family stuff. Surely an 80,000-pound tractor-trailer would be far more difficult to electrify. That impression was only reinforced when Elon Musk's Tesla Semi was repeatedly delayed. 10 years after the initial announcement and 70 years after the deadline for delivery, there's a Semi factory in Sparks, Nevada that is supposed to be starting mass production soon. There's also an anticipated supercharging network that has yet to be built. But it appears to be totally possible to electrify freight trucking, as evidenced by the fact that China is doing it right now. This is the type of thing that I don't know what to say anymore. You know, it's like part of me, I have two minds. First of all, I want America to be a good country. I want my life to be nice. I want my country to be successful and clean and popular and innovative. Like, I want that. And the thing is, the technologies for that to happen already exist. And yet our country simply refuses to believe it. Meanwhile, China's just doing it. Like, I think one of the weaknesses of the human race is actually the fact that you can have conversations with people and they just simply will not change their position because they get embarrassed to be wrong. And I think that may be the worst personality flaw of all time. I am somebody who speaks publicly about a lot of issues, a wide range of issues. And I am a passionate person, might even say a little bit bursting out of the seams occasionally. And when I get something wrong and the evidence is strong that I'm wrong, I fucking change my mind. It's not that fucking hard. And I have a public persona that is in large part based on the idea that I mostly get things right. So whenever I have to admit that I'm wrong on something, that is, you know, people go, haha, you got it wrong. And it makes me embarrassed. Not really, because I just don't give a shit. But you see what I mean. If I can do it, you can do it. That's heavily informed by American exceptionalism, white male mentality to, 100 quadrillion thousand% American exceptionalist brain is a cancer on the planet. Literally causing cancer because you're breathing polluted air that should be polluted. Why does Southern California have smog? It's one of the sunniest places in the fucking world with one of the largest economies in the fucking world, and they can't build renewable energy infrastructure? Like, it's embarrassing. China's transition away from diesel trucks will certainly accelerate thanks to Donald Trump's Iran war, with most of the rest of the world following suit sooner or later. So how is China doing it, guys? Well, Donald Trump is putting the American automobile industry on a road to obsolescence and death by repealing Joe Biden's EV subsidies. China has been leaping ahead. As recently as 2024, EV heavy trucks made up only a bit more than 4% of the Chinese market. But as climate analyst Dave Borlace points out, by the month of December 2025, that soared to 54%. It's all thanks to several subsidies for trucking companies to go electric and a huge government build out of charging infrastructure. Joe Biden was supposed to do that, and they set aside billions of dollars to do it. But guess what, chat? They hired a scam contractor, and because Pete Buttigieg was in charge of the Department of Transportation, they didn't do it. They built like 4 stations in the entire country for $3 billion fucking dollars. The basic strategy is the same one used by Silverado EV, only more so. Chinese EV trucks are immense batteries and are fueled by special built truck chargers along freight routes that could cheaply deliver as much power as possible. The latest chargers could deliver up to 1,500 kilowatts of electricity, about as much as you would need to run a medium-sized factory into a single truck. Compare that to the Tesla charging network, which less than 10 charging locations that can even hit 500 kilowatts. With that kind of power delivery, a truck with a mind-boggling 636 kilowatt-hour battery like the Sany SE Standard could charge from 20 to 80% in less than half an hour. Some of these facilities could charge a regular car in about 5 minutes if it's capable of taking that much juice, which is how long it takes to refill a car at a petrol station. Other companies like CAT-L are focusing on battery swap stations, which make a lot more sense for trucks, which do almost all their charging on the road than passenger cars. That can reportedly take as little as 5 minutes. At present, Chinese EV trucks are more expensive than diesel ones, but operating costs for fuel and maintenance are much lower. With the subsidy, the investment reportedly pays for itself after about 1 million kilometers of shipping. But with EV prices coming down across the board, that will only improve in the future. The EV trucking policy fits neatly into China's general electricity and climate strategy. While the government has been building out electricity-gulping EV truck chargers, it has also been investing in renewable energy at breakneck pace. For years now, it has accounted for more than half of all solar and wind installations in the world. Now, I want you to understand something, chat. China is actually doing what we need to do at the pace that we need it done to save the world from climate change. But the problem is only China is doing that. So we're the problem. We're the fucking problem. And by the way, they're not doing it by lowering their standard of living. This is why the Chinese method is working, because they're not lowering their standard of living. They're raising their standard of living. Do you know what it's like to be on a highway and not have a bunch of diesel fumes being ejected into the fucking air? You know how much pollution is being stopped because you're not burning diesel? You understand how quickly the air is going to clear up if you don't have diesel trucks? Do you, like, what is going on? Like, it'll save literally millions of lives. And best of all, it makes them independent of fossil fuels from the Middle East. They don't have to depend on fossil fuels anymore. So geopolitically, they're safer and their air is cleaner and the electricity is cheaper. I mean, this is why, like, a lot of people will argue with me because I say that China is a socialist country, right? I say that. A lot of people get mad at me for saying that. There are Maoists who get mad at me for saying that. There are liberals who get mad at me for saying that. There's democratic socialists, NATO liberals, NATO leftists who get mad at me for saying it. China is a socialist country. The Communist Party of China is a socialist or a communist party. It is true. Now, they don't have a communist society because we haven't achieved communism. And they haven't formed the final form of socialism. And yes, there is all sorts of problems with China that I don't agree with. And they are working on improving. Our country is more developed than China in the aggregate, although they're catching up very fast. All right. And the main difference between China and America is they focused on outcomes, whereas we focus on ideology. Ironically, the Western world and the capitalist world has become market fundamentalist, while the socialist country of China has become the heterodox, pragmatic country that just does stuff that works. They are a developmental state. They're trying to raise their standard of living to the highest in the world. And every year they make more and more and more progress. And it's not just catching up, it's also cutting edge. And like, what other country in the world that used to be the 5th poorest country in the world or one of the poorest countries in the world has developed as fast as China? And the answer is no. No one. I work at a Class 8 truck manufacturer. The biggest impediment to battery electric semis is the maximum allowed weight for semi trucks being 80,000 pounds in the USA. Electric batteries eat into the total payload you could carry. We make some electric trucks, mostly cab over garbage trucks with stop and go traffic. Doesn't have the infrastructure to support it currently. Our company is looking at the hydrogen fuel cells for weight savings. Don't even give me hydrogen. Yes, American infrastructure is shit. That's the problem. And like, these facts are just facts. China's approach to renewable energy build-out combines large-scale investment, technological innovation, and market reform. A lot of the power would soon lack a buyer if it were for those huge new sources of demand. A principal motivation for China's transition to is energy security. And boy, has that been proved correct over the last 2 months. China is the single largest consumer of oil for the Persian Gulf, in part because it has very little domestic supply. Obviously, if you get rid of gas and diesel-powered vehicles and replace them with electric ones and generate that electricity domestically, you reduce that dependence on foreign energy. And trucks, because they are huge and driven very heavily, account for a giant fraction of energy consumption. If the whole freight fleet is electrified, it would cut Chinese oil demand in half. I should emphasize that, as my colleague David Dayan has written, China is suffering serious problems because of the Hormuz crisis. In the short term, it might even disrupt the production of new EV trucks, especially because it's creating a serious shortage of battery ingredients. But over the short to medium term, the Chinese government is certain to double down on electrification. Well, here's the other thing about this. China saw this dumb war coming. China saw this dumb world coming. And you know what they did? China bought stockpiled oil. The moment the United States attacked Iran the first time, China started stockpiling oil. The moment we bombed them the first time, they said, oh, this is dumb. Okay, they're going to do some dumb shit. Fuck this. And they started buying all the oil they could. They started buying all the oil they could. They started getting, and it was cheap then. It was $50 a barrel. They started buying as much as they could. And they were like, oh, they're going to attack again. They're stupid as fuck. And so before the Iran war started, China had 1.4 billion barrels of oil stored. And so if that's true, they have made trillions in profit. The Chinese government, actually, let's do the math. Okay, so let's say they 1.4 billion. Hold on. That's 1.4 billion times 55. Okay, I'm sorry, not trillions. I'm sorry. It's tens of billions. I'm sorry, I did the math wrong in my back. My estimation was wrong. They made tens of billions of dollars in profit. They made like 80 billion, okay? That's still a lot. All right. China has stashed away far more oil than any other country, according to the U.S. government data released this week. The stockpile, which surged last year, is emerging as a strategic advantage as the world faces an oil shock from the Strait of Hormuz that's largely shut. China is a huge winner in the Iran war, in large part due to positioning on energy, including its oil stockpile. It now owns 70% of global solar, wind, battery, and electric vehicle supply chains. Those are all seeing a boost as import-dependent countries turn from oil and natural gas to renewables. The war was a stress test that Beijing's energy strategy was designed for, Axios co-founder and CEO Jim Van de Heye wrote in a behind-the-curtain column on China. China's stockpiling surged in 2025 due to several factors, according to a February paper from the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. Relatively low oil prices tied to softer demand, rising geopolitical risks, including disruptions tied to sanctions on major suppliers to China like Russia, Venezuela, and Iran, a domestic energy law that required companies to hold more reserves. China added an average of 1.1 million barrels a day of crude to its strategic oil inventories in 2025, which reached nearly 1.4 billion barrels in December. Before the Iran conflict, which began in late February, preliminary government data suggests China had continued to build inventories into this year. The International Energy Agency coordinated the largest ever release of oil reserves on March 11th, making up 400 million barrels available. China is not an IEA member and thus was not part of the release. The U.S. reserve, which could hold 714 million barrels, stood at roughly 413 million in December and has slipped to around 409 million after the March release. It remains well below capacity after a record 2022 drawdown following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with refilling happening gradually as officials wait for lower prices. That's unlikely to happen anytime soon with the Iran war raging. China's moves last year are looking increasingly prescient. What's it like? What's it fucking like to have a government that is competent? a government that is focused on investing in your own country, a government that is not causing wars all over the fucking place, a country that could see how stupid the US is and takes rational steps to mitigate the problems for their own country. Must be fucking nice. In addition to national security, there are manifold other benefits to ditching diesel freight. For instance, despite only accounting for 6% of all Chinese vehicles, big trunks produce something like 63% of nitrogen oxides and 96% of total particulate matter emissions produced by vehicles. That pollution causes all manners of illness, including heart disease, strokes, and various cancers. Also respiratory illness. So by embracing EV freight trucks, China can improve its national security, save business and public money, grab a firm foothold in yet another industry of the future, help the climate, and greatly cut down on illness and death suffered by the Chinese people. A more obviously correct policy is hard to imagine. And yet, we don't do this. And yet, we don't do it. It's almost like our country is fucking stupid.
New national poll from the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School is taking a look at how young Americans ages 18 to 29 see the state of our nation.
Do you think any disease can be cured given enough effort and resource allocation? Lots of diseases are cured relatively often, actually. We just don't invest that much money into it. We've never invested anywhere near the amount of money that's going into AI infrastructure right now in something that's like cancer research.
Now, findings reveal economic pressure is the defining crisis for the young generation as they increasingly lose faith in the political system. For more, let's bring in the director of polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University, MS Now contributor John Della Volpe. So, John, tell us what you found.
Thanks for having us back, Mika. This is the 52nd survey that we've conducted, and I don't think we've seen a survey where younger people are so concerned about the future of our country. 59% of young Americans say we're on the wrong track. We've never seen a number higher than that. Only 15% have faith or trust in the federal government to do the right thing, not even to deliver, but just to do the right thing. We see only a third have faith that the elections and the midterm elections will be carried on fairly as well. So we see a generation who is not apathetic. They care deeply about these issues. We talk about the economic crisis so many young people are facing, but the concern is that there is a lack of confidence in agency, that the system can actually make the changes that are required for people, not just to even live a good life, but even just to survive economically day to day.
Yeah, John, I mean, you look at some of these numbers, it's pretty bleak. Only 13% of the people you polled say the country's on the right track. Donald Trump has a 25% approval rating. You can say, well, that's terrible. But then you look and also Democrats have a 26% approval rating. Republicans in Congress, a 25% approval rating. So it's sort of an across-the-board indictment of our politics. Specifically on the question of Iran, how did the people who responded to your poll say they're feeling about that?
They were very clear, Willie. A majority believe at the start it's just not in the best interests of Americans, period, number one. Number two, we have a supermajority to over 70% concerned about the impacts, not just the economic impacts for them, their community, but also the impact of the war spreading, the impact of American troops, American embassies, other targets, potentially being impacted as well. It's something that weighs on them every single day. Beyond this polling, I'm listening to young Americans every single day. I'm having conversations with them, and the war is still the driver that is taking up probably 40% of all the conversations in terms of how people are processing the news. It's very, very present. And again, it's just a stack, Willie. You've got cost of living, gas, housing, and now the war. This is a stack of issues that are impacting their faith in the country and also their own mental health, which is something we have to continue to keep in mind.
And John, contributing to this notion that the country is off track. But let's go back. You mentioned it briefly there, the economy, which so often dictates midterms. But for these voters, housing. We know it's such a challenge it is right now for younger people to be able to afford their first home. What more have you found?
I've said this before, Jonathan, when I've been on, the fact that It's hard for me to conduct any sort of focus group where I don't find people. And the number is actually here on the screen where people just on the verge of or already had recently experienced some kind of homelessness. And we can see here that 40% of younger people, millions and millions of young people, say the cost of housing is impacting them a lot. They say it is a national emergency. The number of people I talk about who have 2-3 jobs and are afraid of being.
Look at this guy's house. Oh, shit. Sorry about that, chat. I said, look at this guy's house. Nice centerpiece fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows. Got a nice, large sectional. Not bad. Pretty chill.
Sick one day, missing those paychecks, that's a difference between living in their own apartment versus potentially kind of on someone's couch or in the car. It is that serious of an issue. They're saying it's a national emergency. I think we all need to treat it like that.
That's an important point. Gen Z's first election was the last one. They turned out in droves. We'll see how they turn out coming this fall. MS Now contributor, director of polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University, John Della Volpe, always with the interesting information for us. John, thanks so much.
In Madison, Wisconsin, conservative voters Rowan, Jacob, and Praveer, and liberal voters Ty, Whitman, and Kathy are part of our country's youngest voting bloc.
I think that with Gen Z, we love us. We're our biggest fans. But in all seriousness, I think that for the first time in American history, the younger generations are
God
not.
damn, this guy's going bald. Holy shit. This is a Gen Zer? Holy fuck. Criminy. Minoxidil, brother. My brother. My goodness gracious.
Not set up to have a better life than their parents. And I think that that's an unfair and that's a scary thing.
He reminds me of Samuel Gamgee. This is the most Samuel Gamgee coded guy of all time. Doesn't he? Am I right or am I right? Is that one of the hobbits? Yeah, that's Frodo's friend. Gardener, Samwise Gamgee. Ring bearer.
Than their parents.
Bisexual king.
And I think that that's an unfair and that's a scary thing.
What would you all say are the two most important topics right now?
I would say the economy and the disappearing middle class.
I would say affordability and the job market.
Protecting democracy and campaign finance.
The economy and how united we are as a society.
Affordability, as well as protecting our democracy and our constitution.
Income inequality.
Why do you like our Constitution? What do you like about, no, seriously, what do you like about the American Constitution? The unelected clerics in robes who could just make law from the bench, the unrepresentative Senate, the gerrymandered House, the imperial presidency. What exactly do you like about American Constitution? The 50 myriad state bureaucracies that exist for no fucking reason? Because it's very important that North and South Dakota each get 2 senators. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? America's Constitution in governmental form sucks. No modern society would look at America's Constitution and go, yeah, we should use that. It sucks. What the fuck are we talking about?
And foreign policy.
Let's dive into cost of living because that is one of the biggest stressors for all Americans, but especially people in our generation in Gen Z.
Yeah.
How would you all describe affordability right now?
No bueno.
Yeah.
I prefer this administration tackling it than I would have a hypothetical Kamala Harris administration.
When I look at the federal administration, the Trump administration right now, I don't see them using their powers to help young people, help the working class, and help people that are struggling. I think their priorities are in a lot of different areas, but not focused on that right now.
I'm actually moving down south. The South is where I see where I can actually build a future where I see home ownership as a possibility.
Gas prices are a funny thing because we complain about them, but we have to pay for them anyway. I have like a tiny car and I just spent $40 to fill it up fully. And it's a lot, and it just gets to be a lot when you stack all of these things.
M-Wise has a small car.
And, ideologically, whatever. I just want my life to be livable.
Gen Z is entering a
I
tough
don't know why
job
I keep
market.
bullying Samwise. He seems like a chill guy.
Data from the U.S.
He also seems like a wrestler for sure. Rudy. Oh yeah, that's also who he does remind me of Rudy. Yeah. The same
Census
actor.
Bureau shows a rise in unemployment for young folks with or without a college degree.
What are your thoughts on the job opportunities, the job market in this moment?
I love how America's unemployment rate has largely been bullshit for 10 years. Ever since the gig app started, The unemployment rate is bullshit. It's like, oh, you did an Uber Eat? You did an Uber Eat delivery? You're employed as a delivery driver. That's fucking unemployed. Like, that kind of shitty ass job didn't exist. People had a lot more W-2s back then, you know, with benefits.
We're the first generation to be graduating into the era of AI, and we've watched firsthand while the entry-level jobs that were always supposed to be available for new graduates are slowly disappearing. It's a very scary time to be entering the job market, and when we look to politicians and the federal government, it doesn't feel like they're taking the issue seriously.
I have personally applied to over 20 internships within the past few months. I've either gotten rejected or completely ghosted. I also want to go to law school, and I also want to take a gap year being a paralegal as well. And I also recently learned that lawyers at big companies are also using AI to like help write their memos or research a little bit. And it makes me very worried.
I want to do a quick rapid fire, so just one word to respond to this. How would you describe the Republican Party right now?
Disjointed.
Misguided.
Failing.
Large.
Undemocratic.
Spineless.
Wait, I thought you liked the Constitution. What? Wait, I thought you liked the Constitution. Wait. Large. I thought you liked the Constitution. Why are you saying undemocratic? I thought it was an amazing Constitution that was so well written by the sclerotic slaver class of illiterate fucking peasants.
Guys, describe the Democratic Party right now.
Lost.
Incorrect.
Trying.
Confused.
I'll say struggling.
I would also say struggling.
In one word, how would you describe the Trump White House during this second administration? Ty, we'll start with you.
The thing about Gen Z is they have the politics of their parents, which are largely Gen Xers and younger baby boomers. And they like, there's just something like off about the Gen. Like it's not that they're as conservative, but there's definitely like something going on there.
Say failed.
I would say tyrannical.
Tyrannical? I love her. I'm obsessed with the lib. I'm obsessed with her, which is like, I love our Constitution that has resulted in us having a tyrannical, undemocratic regime. Please save us, save the Constitution by, I mean, what has Donald Trump done that's really unconstitutional? I mean, you could argue some of the things he's done are unconstitutional, right? But fundamentally, it seems like the system accepts it.
Strong.
Authoritarian.
Directionless.
Uncommitted.
How do you all think the Trump administration is handling immigration right now?
I'm happy with some of it. I like that it did start with deporting people who are actual criminals, and I think that Trump ran heavily on focusing on criminals.
It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
And yet we are seeing people who don't fit that description being detained, and they are in the country illegally, so there is that aspect.
I am a proud daughter of Chinese immigrants.
Her leg is going, yes.
And my parents are hardworking people, and they came to the country the right way and did it the right way. So when I see videos of children being detained or innocent people who are being detained or people who are horrifically beaten up by ICE, and also the tragic murder of Alex Purdy and Renee Good.
By the way, neither one of those murderers were prosecuted. Did the Democratic Party say anything? Did the Democratic Party do anything? Those guys were not prosecuted. They weren't even fired. Think about that. In fact, I just saw a story today that he's actually got a cushy job. He got promoted or something. See if I can find it.
I get a little bit worried for my family, and myself.
Okay, I found it. ICE agent who killed Renee Good in Minneapolis gets cushy new job. Jonathan Ross is still avoiding accountability months after he shot and killed Renee Good. The ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good in Minneapolis and then called her a fucking bitch before she died in her car has been transferred to a different state to continue his work with the agency as the FBI continued to suppress an investigation into him. Punch Up, the Daily Beast new Substack, reported that Jonathan Ross, who was only placed on 3 days of administrative leave for shooting Good in the arm, head, and chest, is back in an administrative and investigative capacity, facing virtually no consequences for killing an innocent woman in broad daylight. Department of Homeland Security officials told the outlet that ICE's Internal Affairs can't conduct its own investigation until the FBI probe ends. meaning Ross could avoid accountability for a long time to come. The FBI's investigation into Ross has been delayed and marked by a series of controversial moves. 6 senior Justice Department officials quit in January over the department's handling of the case, as did an FBI supervisor in the Minneapolis field office who was pushed to discontinue her civil rights probe into Ross. And only while the DOJ claims that the investigation is ongoing, the only thing that's come out of it is Ross returning to work. So, like, you could say he was like he murdered her all you want, but the reality is that the Constitution that you love is giving her no succor, no support, and no justice.
Just because if they're coming after a certain group of people who look a certain way, what's not to say that they're going to come after people who look like me?
Raise your hand if you think our elected officials are working efficiently and working for your best interest. No hands raised. Okay, discuss. Tell me why.
If you realize, oh, this party doesn't fully represent me or this party doesn't fully represent me, I'll just take the lesser of two evils. Yeah. Well, pretty soon every election becomes the lesser of two evils, and we're never actually voting for an active, positive good. We're always just voting for the less evil. And
this is why he got to get on the boat. This is why he got to go to the Grey Havens, guys. This is why. This is why.
I think that that's a kind of dreary system.
When you look to your politicians on both, and I will say this is absolutely on both sides of the aisle, and they're being funded by big pharma, by AI, by foreign influence. It's
true. These Gen Zers are killing it. Also, as somebody with curly hair, I know the effort that went into this. Like, she has got her shit tight. She's on lock. The curls are curling. That's a lot of scrunching. Exactly.
Impossible to think that they're actually fighting for what they were elected to do.
How are you all feeling about
I will say something about Gen Z. Like, Gen Z, they just have a very mature style. You know what I mean? I don't know how to put your finger on it. They have like a very conservative, conservative old style. You know what I mean? So conventional, so like a corporate diversity poster drip.
Comes the lesser of two evils, and we're never actually voting for an active, positive good. We're always just voting for the less evil. And I think that that's a kind of dreary system.
When you look to your politicians on both, and I will say this is absolutely on both sides of the aisle, and they're being funded by big pharma, by AI, by foreign influence, it's impossible to think that they're actually fighting for what they were elected to do.
How are you all feeling about the midterms? Are people talking about it yet in your circles?
I'm really excited for midterms. I think in 2024, we heard a lot of talk about mandates. Trump won, and he ran on no new wars. He ran on affordability, really. And now I think we see we're entangled in multiple nations. There's been 2 years. There's been a Republican Senate, a Republican-controlled House, and a Republican in the White House. And
even the kind of like weird centrist Gen Z people are so much more intelligent. I have never seen a group of boomers speak this intelligently about politics in a focus group in my entire life. I'm not even kidding. I've watched we just read a boomer focus group yesterday. They were fucking stupid. These people are talking about like partisan control of the Congress and shit, which to me is basic facts. But to see it on television is insane. These are not children.
See how voters feel about the work that they've done.
I'm a little concerned about the midterms due to conservatives just aren't showing up to vote unless...
So this is, you have nose piercings and you're a conservative. God, we live in the funniest timeline, dude. We live in the funniest fucking timeline.
It's like a presidential big election. I mean, we saw this with our last spring election. We pretty much lost as conservatives to the people who are running for the Democratic Party. And that's just, we need to get to the polls. Even if you vote ahead of time, like we just need the votes to get in.
Personally, I think Gen Z gets a bad rap in a couple categories. So
What? In what world does Gen Z get a bad rap? Please. What has Gen Z ever gotten a bad rap? Please explain this. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear the bad rap for Gen Z.
I'm curious what you guys think are some of the biggest misconceptions that
I'm so
other
excited
generations
to hear this one.
have about us.
I love hearing the Gen Z stare. conversation. I feel like I don't know if I've witnessed this before, aside from like occasional, like the barista behind the counter baby is like, you know, clocking what I'm saying. But I just think it's important to think like our brains.
The Gen Z stare is the idea that Gen Z are really highly uncommunicative and they get very socially awkward in real life. So when they go to places like restaurants, they don't communicate or they don't respond, and they don't even kind of like act like they heard a person. Like you talk to them and they just kind of like stare into space and they don't respond like a person who's in a conversation would respond. That's the Gen Z stare, that basically Gen Z are extremely awkward and have high social anxiety. So they can't interact in like, you know, places like restaurants. They like have trouble in those kind of social situations. That's the Gen Z stare that she's referring to.
Kind of overloaded. We're probably, I know aside from Gen Alpha, like one of the most overstimulated generations to exist.
I actually completely disagree. I think you're the least stimulated generation to ever exist. Ironically, I think you're the least stimulated generation to ever exist. I think you're the least experiential generation. Like you have a lot of time on screens, there's no doubt about that. But as far as like life experience, I think Gen Z is behind other generations as far as stuff like relationship experience, marriage rates. They're behind millennials on a lot of just lifestyle signposts. And not, you know, obviously millennials are older, but what I'm saying is like that their point in their life, they're like behind. And it's not their fault. Like they ran into COVID. They ran into the world that came after the destruction caused by the Great Recession. And, you know, obviously we haven't figured out the phone and the internet. It's now become an addictive system. And we have a panopticon where everybody's carrying a phone. So you better not do anything too expressive because somebody might make a video of you and call you cringe. There's a lot less space to be experimental, but every mistake becomes part of your permanent record.
And just like, I don't know, maybe having a little bit more grace with that like we are still like, you know, kind of figuring out what our next steps are, processing what you're saying. But we're also like some of the most educated generations as well. So I just kind of laugh like at like, you know, the kind of like, oh, they're so, you know, kind of dumb or like thoughtless or empty brained, I think are some of the things that people say. And I think that's just really not the case. So it
is funny that the conservative is like, we're not empty brained.
Argue too much going on.
Just because we're privy to so much information, we tend to joke about things more than perhaps other generations do, or maybe more than we should. But I do think at the end of the day, we do care about our future and the future.
I don't agree with that at all. I think Gen Z is also more humorless. Stan culture and cancel culture has never been stronger among that generation. God forbid somebody put a sex scene in a television show designed for adults. I don't agree with that at all.
For our fellow American.
That's what I was going to say, touching on like the not serious or maybe not smart. I think we have so much information, in most everybody that I know is incredibly locked in on like current events and all sorts of different issues. We've got everything one Google search away from us, and I think we're incredibly smart. We're incredibly tuned into what's going on, more so than others are, and I think we're aware of the biases that we have and are educated about it.
And we're being informed like on our phones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In our
Yeah.
group chats, the podcasts,
Yeah.
the streams, and that's also another big difference.
I caught myself the other day. I was talking to a friend and I said, yeah, did you hear this thing happen? Well, no, it didn't. I was like, yeah, it did. And I was like, well, he said, where'd you hear that? Well, I read a headline. And then I remembered back when I was in high school, there was some study we were doing in my marketing class where they were talking about 80% of Americans don't actually read the article, they just read headlines. And I'm like, I fell for it. I fell for it. The thing.
Despite their political differences, these 20-somethings still have hope for the future of our country.
I think the American dream can be possible. I don't know right now, like the current trajectory we're on, I don't necessarily feel like we're setting people up to achieve it, but I think we can get there.
I think one thing that may need to change in terms of the mentality of our generation and younger people is that, as harsh as it may seem, no one's really coming to save you. Not the government, not someone you're friends with, no one. And at the end of the day, your life falls on you.
My hope for the future.
It's a big world out there, buddy. And my group is going to beat your individual ass every fucking time. Don't worry. We plan on it. The kind of like individualist nihilism of the idea of like your life is on you. What does that mean? That's not an actionable statement. I would actually call that blather. It's, oh man, your life is on you. Is that right? You're a child. You spent most of your life under your parents' care. What do you mean? You had a hero. You had heroes your whole life. Your family. That's why you're an adult. That's why you're breathing. Somebody gave you shit for free for years and years and years and years and years and made sure you were taken care of. Made sure you had a place to see. What the fuck are you talking about? Every human being starts due to the generosity and care of others. That's an innate part of being alive. If you made it to adulthood, it's because other people cared for you. Now, a lot of the times those people fuck up and do fucked up shit. And a lot of people are neglected in serious ways. The idea that you're on your own doesn't even make sense. Chad, I'm sorry. Styx is being insane. How do you even stand on that?
The future of America is that we get leaders who actually care about the American people, who follow through on what they say they're going to do. My hope is that we have a society that feeds into the families and feeds into one another, that we stop being so individualized and come together again as a community.
What does
because
that
that's,
mean?
as humans, is what
yeah,
we're
we
made
got to
for.
come together as a community and rip families apart because of immigration paperwork. What does that mean? Again, rambling, apolitical, you know, what can you say? Okay, hold on, Chad. I gotta save Styx. He's going crazy. Bro! Are you okay? Oh my gosh. What did you do? What did you do? No! Stop being a terrorist. He's being a terrorist. He like tried to climb on top of my streaming like monitors, and then he jumped onto like a part of a window. Not even like the ledge, not even like a tiny little like thing that was like this thick. Then he started falling. And so he decided to like grab the computer. He was like, Mike, I was watching Gen Z and I felt nihilism growing in my veins. Okay, chat. Funniest story of all time popped up. Mallory McMorrow. Mallory McMorrow exposed. Mallory McMorrow deleted tweets scandal. Oh, baby. Make me Miss California and deleted tweets. Senate candidate Mallory McMorrow disparaged middle America. What do you mean subscriber? Oh no, this is bullshit. No, this is bullshit, CNN. No, CNN. No. You're showing me this shit. Okay, we found it. Okay, we're good. We're Make me Miss California and deleted tweets. Senate candidate Mallory McMorrow disparaged middle America. As Democrats brace for a bruising primary in Michigan's U.S. Senate race, Mallory McMorrow, one of the party's top contender, has quietly deleted thousands of old tweets, including posts in which she took jabs at rural Midwest, lamented ever leaving California, and said she continued to vote there after she said she'd permanently moved to Michigan. McMorrow, a Michigan state lawmaker and rising star in the Democratic primary, wrote in her 2025 autobiography that she relocated permanently to Michigan in 2014. Yet a CNN K-file review of the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine reveals a series of now deleted social media posts of McMorrow describing herself as a California resident as late as July 2016. McMorrow repeatedly referenced voting in California's June 2016 Democratic primary. Let me guess, vote for Hillary. Let me guess, vote for Hillary. Wait, what happened? Okay, maybe. Oh, come on! Come on! Come on! It's doing 2 archive links. Oh, nice. Okay, good point. Thank you. Yes, it's double archiving. Yes, good eye chatter. Okay, hold on, maybe it'll load. And now other deleted posts. McMorrow also described herself in late July 2016 as a constituent of California Rep. Ted Lieu and referenced voting in person in November 2014 in the Los Angeles area where she was a resident at the time. She's from California? Of course she is. Of fucking course she is. Oh my God, it's a coastal elite. Oh my God. Public records show she registered to vote in Michigan in August 2016. On top of questions about McMorrow's voting record, the deleted tweets offer a window into her political evolution. Among the roughly 6,000 deleted posts are those that reflect on a range of progressive views, from contemplating a future without cars to supporting the Black Lives Matter movement to comparing President Trump and his supporters to Nazis. These are all based. Don't delete these. McMorrow also deleted comments about the U.S. coast breaking off from Middle America following the election of Trump. I had a dream that the U.S. amicably broke off into the ring, coasts in Canada, parts of Michigan, Texas, and Middle America. Oh, and the ring nominated Obama as prime minister, and everyone was given $1,000 in 6 months to pick a side. As a registered California voter who voted absentee, I refused to answer the phone today. California, I thought my primary vote would matter this year, sobs quietly. Oh, I guess she's talking about how they called the election for Clinton based on superdelegate votes, even though that Bernie could still win the majority of pledged delegates. They were trying to call the election early based on superdelegates. I don't know if you guys remember that. Her campaign declined to clarify whether the post referred to a literal dream or a hypothetical situation she hoped for. In recent years, McMorrow has espoused more moderate views and has branded herself as a pragmatist in the crowded Democratic Senate primary that is shaping up to be among the more competitive races this year. Wow, I can't believe she's a fucking California sellout. Wow, I can't believe she's a California sellout. Who could believe that such a thing existed? McMorrow is locked in a dead heat against U.S. Rep. Haley Stevens and Abdul El Said, a former Detroit public health official. A spokesperson for McMorrow, Hannah Lindau, said the campaign deleted all her tweets prior to 2020, describing it as pretty standard for candidates. It's pretty standard for, hey man, that was like 6 years ago, bro. You shouldn't look into that. Anyway, everybody look at Graham Plattner's Reddit from 2009. I just had a British person arguing with me about Graham Plattner's 2009 Reddit posts. She said that McMorrow's move from California to Michigan was a process that was not completed until mid-2016, that she remained registered to vote in California during that time, and that she voted absentee in June 2016. Lindo said McMorrow considers 2014 the start of that move. These are normal tweets by a normal person, said Lindo. McMorrow's communications director. As Michigan Senate Majority Whip, Mallory has spent the past 80 years. How the fuck did she get that job? How the fuck did I move to Michigan and I'm the Senate Majority Whip within 4 years? How did that happen? All right. Who are her parents? Who the fuck are her parents? During her junior year at Notre Dame, she won a public design contest for the 2018 version of the Mazda 3. Okay. After graduation, she would work for design firms in New York and Los Angeles, as well as for Mattel and Gawker before moving to Michigan. So she moved to Michigan and immediately started to run for office. She was unopposed in the primary? What? She endorsed Elizabeth Warren for president in 2019 and volunteered for her presidential campaign in Michigan. McMorrow delivered a speech at on August 19, 2024. McMorrow delivered a speech at the DNC and brought out a giant copy of the roughly 900-page Project 2025. Why the fuck did they pick her to give a DNC speech as a state senator? So obviously there is some sort of DC. She's very connected in DC. There's some stuff that's being left out of the old Wikipedia. She has been advised by Democratic operative Liz Smith since 2022. Andrew Cuomo's fixer and Democratic centrist Pete Buttigieg supporter. Liz Smith helped create a Republican majority in the New York State Senate through a system called the IDC, which is the Independent Democratic Caucus, which was a group of Republican politicians that ran as Democrats. And then when they won the Democratic nomination and therefore their seats, they would then caucus with the Republicans. McMorrow has called herself a pragmatist. She said, I don't know that I would be in office in my first district if I was at the far left end of the party. And I don't think that's what people are looking for right now. I personally, I got to be honest with you, chat. I consider this kind of answer to be disqualifying. What do you mean? I don't think that's what people are looking for. What do you believe about the world? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you mean that's not what people are looking for right now? What the fuck are you doing? Selling a product? What are you, a toy at Mattel? And I guess the answer is yes. McMorrow has supported the growth of data centers while also advocating that data centers pay a fair share of taxes, voting as a state senator to exempt data center equipment from sales and use taxes. Yeah, guys, they gotta pay their fair share in taxes, which is why we're not gonna make them pay any taxes. Guys, she supports a public option. What a pathetic worm. Jesus Christ. In April 2025, McMorrow reached out to pro-Israel Democratic groups to emphasize her support for Israel during her candidacy and condemned the harassment and anti-Semitism of pro-Palestinian protests at the University of Michigan directed toward its regents. Her husband, who is Jewish, interned for AIPAC. Washington Examiner is like a right-wing, far-right rag. McMorrow has asked AIPAC not to intervene in the primary on behalf of their preferred candidate, Haley Stevens, and has said that she's in contact with AIPAC and other pro-Israel groups. She said the groups have been receptive to her positions on Israel, adding they are understanding the shifting dynamics not only from Michigan, but around the country and the world. People are very attuned to the deep influence PACs have that outweighs the influence of people and voters. In other words, hey guys, I'm a sellout to you, but if you give me money, it'll be too obvious. Holy shit, what a fucking loser. Holy God. I'm sorry I got off track there, chat. I was just like, how do people like this fucking shit? It is absolutely insane to me. How do you like that? How the fuck do you like her? And she attacked Assad again today? Oh, we're going nuclear on this shit. Asked whether she believes Piker to be anti-Semitic, McMorrow said no. But she added that it almost doesn't matter. I don't think that he is. I think he gets dangerously close. I think there's a justifiable anger at the ongoing war. I think a lot of what he says is uninformed and hurtful. Like what? I can't purport to speak for what he believes in his heart, but I can tell you for my family, a lot of what he says is really hurtful. Like what? God, we got to defeat this woman. We've got to defeat her. By the way, if she wins, I'm not helping that. Oh well, I guess Michigan has got a Republican senator. Oh well. So she better not fucking win. We can't have these we can't have these fucking evil anti-Semitic Zionist senators. And by the way, I just said what I said. Being a Zionist is anti-Semitic. Mallory has spent the past 8 years fighting and delivering for making people's lives better. Higher wages, universal pre-K, no kid going hungry in schools, comprehensive gun prevention laws, and more. And she's tweeted about that too. McMorrow's campaign declined to say which position she did and did not stand by, other than to say she stood by a comment lamenting the Michigan weather. Archive snapshots preserved by the Internet Archive Wayback Machine show that in 2022, McMorrow's X account contained more than 20,000 tweets. Now the account shows just 13,900 tweets, including one praising a thread arguing that rural Americans, not coastal elites, need to better understand the rest of the country. In one tweet in January 2017, when a user wrote, California should have its own diplomats to make sure we don't get nuked because of morons from the other side of the country, Morrow responded, there are days like these that make me miss California even more. In announcing her Senate campaign in 2017, McMorrow struck a very different tone. Choosing to put roots down right here in Michigan is the best decision I ever made. Okay, here's what I want you guys to understand. The moment when she loses this fucking primary and she's not the senator, her ass will be back to California where she actually wants to live. She has absolutely the only reason she's in Michigan is because she wants to be a senator. And that's a race she can run in. Some show McMorrow expressing lighthearted support for a future without cars, highlighting a white privilege seminar at her alma mater, University of Notre Dame, and saying a southern border wall would limit the flow of avocados into the United States. Pushing for a future where we don't own cars. Cars are dead, she joked in one thread. What about all the avocados from Mexico? If that wall gets built, buy avocados, she said in another. Oh, there's an inhumane border wall that's destroying our environment and preventing the natural migration of wild animals and disrupting the ecosystem, while also forcing economic migrants who are vital for our economy to travel in like dangerous remote areas and possibly die. No. I'm missing out on my guac. My Chipotle won't have as much guac. Average insane conservative take. How dare you question my treats? Jesus. I'm particularly proud of my alma mater in Notre Dame for offering a white privilege seminar, reads a Cinch Purge 2014 post. Valerie started her career as a car designer and doesn't want to ban cars. She's been repeatedly endorsed by auto unions, a spokesman told CNN. Some of the deleted posts could prove politically sensitive in a state that Trump has carried twice and where auto manufacturing and rural communities are central to the political landscape. Multiple deleted posts from McMorrow also had comparisons between the United States under Trump and Nazi Germany. Just over a week into Trump's first term, McMorrow wrote, Dr. Seuss 1941. We've been here before, America. Hashtag America first. Hashtag no Muslim ban. Linking to a Dr. Seuss cartoon about Nazi Germany. It was a Dr. Seuss cartoon about America, you idiot! It was a Dr. Seuss cartoon about America, not about Nazi Germany, you stupid fuck! Jesus Christ, they're so stupid! CNN, you are stupid! This is a cartoon about America, okay? This is a cartoon about America, not about Nazi Germany. This is a cartoon about America. It's a criticism of the America First movement. This is not, it says the great U.S. sideshow. It even says it. This is not about America. This is about, this is not about Nazi Germany. It's about America and the America First movement's links to Nazism. And on this platform, folks, those most perplexing people, the lads with the Siamese beard, unrelated by blood, they are joined in a manner that mystifies the mightiest minds in the land. AKA, Dr. Seuss was criticizing the links between the German-American Bund and the American First movement with Nazi German agents. And he was making the accusation that it doesn't make sense and that they actually are linked. This is a criticism of American politics. I mean, legitimately, this is our news. Our news is dumber than dirt. And I already knew, like, do you know how funny that is that I knew immediately what things she was talking about? Like, then I knew immediately what cartoon it was. I remember the actual cartoon. And I knew that CNN was fucking up the interpretation of it because they're stupid. When another user wrote in July 2017 that they had zero faith they could change the mind of Trump supporters, McMorrow responded, agreed, but now how do we fight back? Hitler had supporters, Stalin had supporters, Putin has supporters. No one will change their minds. In another post in October 2020, McMorrow shared a video featuring a Holocaust survivor warning about parallels between Nazi Germany and Trump's and his authoritarian aspirations. McMorrow added, please watch the full 4-minute mini doc that a dear friend created with Walter, a 91-year-old Holocaust survivor, warning about the parallels he sees between the rise of Nazi Germany and America today. Another tweet from February 2016, shortly after the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, said, thoughts after Scalia on life. Never be the type of person that makes people cheer when you're dead. Now, here's the thing about these tweets. These are good tweets. And the reality is that Mallory McMorrow is selling all of this out. She's a sellout. So she's willing to pretend to be a different person to advance her career. That is the most dangerous type of person to be trusted as a politician. She knows what's right, and nonetheless, she is going away from it in order to get money and power. She is a disgusting careerist, a sellout, and an opportunist. She is dangerous. This is John Fetterman coded Fetterwoman 101. In another post from March 2016, shortly after she moved to the state, McMorrow complained about the weather, writing, yesterday it was nearly 50, and now the sky is shitting ice on everything. I don't like you, Michigan. Oh, she's so mad she lives in Michigan. McMorrow campaign stood by her comments, telling CNN the Michigan sky does, in fact, sometimes shit ice. She stands by that. Does she stand by the fact she doesn't like Michigan? Although McMorrow's book tags her move happening in 2014, in a 2015 interview, McMorrow said she moved in 2015. Instagram posts on her personal turned campaign Instagram show she listed her Los Angeles area apartment being vacated in March 2016. What's a couple years between friends? It's unclear why she could continue to vote in Michigan after establishing residency in Michigan. Continue to vote in California after establishing residency in Michigan. But McMorrow shared a New York Magazine story that in April about the state Democratic primary being important for the first time in decades. She later shared a crying image of the late actor James Vanderbeek of Dawson's Creek fame, lamenting the Democratic primary being settled before California voted. It wasn't. It wasn't settled before California voted, number one. And number two, she committed voter fraud. Under California law, only state residents are eligible to vote in California elections, with residency defined as a voter's established domicile and intent to remain. In 2024, McMorrow chastised a Twitter user who said they voted in a state they no longer lived in when in a spat with a voter who moved to California but still voted in Michigan, writing, so you moved for work and live in California but are registered somewhere you no longer live? That's illegal! McMorrow's husband was a senior staffer for Michigan governor and campaign staffer for John Kerry. Oh. I mean, that explains a lot. Ugh. How come Abdul hasn't pushed this on TV? This just dropped today, guys. It just dropped today. All right, I want to talk about the Supreme Court striking down the Louisiana congressional
map. Let's turn to more breaking news just in from Washington. We just got a major decision from the Supreme Court on redistricting.
Mike, please address this.
Madly in love with not gender swapped Candace Owens, but it's doomed Yuri because not gender swapped Candace Owens is desperately in love with gender swapped Charlie Kirk. But this is also doomed Yuri because girl Kirk is already married to male Erica Kirk. But that marriage also isn't gonna last long because boy Erica Kirk already got girl JD Vance pregnant. And get this, the baby in girl JD Vance's belly, baby Hassan Piker. Okay, gender swapped Nick Fuentes is madly in love with.
This is the kind of like content technology that I am not good enough to understand or be entertained by. Like I get it, like I understand what's going on here, but for me, I'm just too autistic for that. You know what I mean? I'm just too autistic for that. Scientology raid with Jesus. Okay, well, this is just, you're committing crimes now. You're breaking their door. All right. Let's talk about a more important story, namely the Voting Rights Act being struck down.
Let's go to Lisa Rubin, MS Now senior legal reporter. Lisa, bring us up to speed.
Well, Anna, this decision is one of the most eagerly anticipated of this Supreme Court term. This is a decision coming out of Louisiana, which the court was deciding whether or not the creation of a second majority-minority voting district for its congressional races was constitutional or not, and whether or not it was in compliance with the Voting Rights Act. Here, the court is deciding by a 6-3 vote and a decision authored by Justice Alito that the map that Louisiana created in order to comply with the Voting Rights Act is not a map that can stand. The court's saying that the Voting Rights Act sometimes justifies racially based decision-making consistent with the Constitution, but here that while the state's efforts to comply were laudatory, this particular district is a racial gerrymander that cannot stand. That means that it will go back down to the...
So in other words, the Voting Rights Act created a mandate for what's called districts of like marginalized communities. Basically, the Deep South had historically diluted or defeated the political power of black people. So the Voting Rights Act required majority minority districts in order to create proportional political power for those marginalized communities. So that wasn't in fact a certain type of, you could say it was like packing, but now what's going to happen is instead of having those like packed majority minority districts, so a few seats were, you know, represented by Democrats, they're just going to use gerrymandering to completely dilute the black vote to zero. There are no Democrats in these deep South states. In a certain sense, this is kind of a good thing, actually. This is kind of a good thing, actually. And I'll tell you why it's a good thing. It's a bad thing because it's incredibly racist gerrymandering and it's going to be damaging politically to the Democrats' efforts to gain a majority in the House. But ultimately, so I consider it to be racist. Like, this decision is a racist decision intended to dilute black people's political power. However, and here's the however part where it's going to end up backfiring. There are more of us than there are of them. There are more left-leaning people in this country by quite a lot than right-leaning people. And the more things get polarized, the better. The more that everybody is convinced that we need to take radical action, radical reforms, the better. The more people like Jim Clyburn are gone, the more that these kind of like mamby-pamby collaborationist Democrats are gone out of the party, the better the party's going to be. Right now in Florida, they just passed another gerrymandering. So this is dangerous because Florida, obviously, they just gerrymandered Oliver Larkin's seat. So it went from being a safe Democratic seat to now it appears to be a Republican gerrymander. So they just rat-fucked Oliver Larkin. But that, you know, they're eliminating Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They're eliminating Jared Moskowitz. So even if Oliver doesn't win the primary, they're gone. The worst Democrats in Congress are all gone. I'd rather have 218 progressives than 300 Democrats. And I think we're heading towards a world that's much, much, much more closer to the 218 progressives than it is 300 Democrats.
Lower courts for further decision making about the composition of congressional maps in Louisiana. But this could have reverberations beyond Louisiana as well, Anna.
And I want to bring in Leah Lippman, who's standing by with us. Leah, give me your reaction to this ruling. Okay, we'll come back to Leah as soon as we have some of those audio and technical issues figured out. Lisa, as far as the implications go on this, the Voting Rights Act we know is important here, and the population in Louisiana is about a third Black. So will their voices and their votes be heard? I think that's the big question people are asking, given the map was drawn in response to a previous ruling that they needed to have more representation, this population.
Yes, and what the court is holding here, Anna, is that this was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. So you have to ask, are the lines going to be drawn in a way that disperses the votes of African Americans in the state of Louisiana such that their voices will not be heard in the way that we have traditionally understood the Voting Rights Act to support? That's a legitimate question on the table now, how the state is going to redraw these maps in a way that both complies with the Voting Rights Act, but also comports with this court's decision today, an unambiguous decision where you have all 6 of the court's conservatives in the majority, and you have 3 of the court's liberals in dissent. I have yet to read the dissent. We've got 92 pages of decisions here, but this is one that we expected could have large reverberations across the country. And I just want to situate this in the context of some of these larger redistricting fights that are happening across the country. We are seeing a number of states try to redistrict for political reasons, to gain a political advantage. And while we see whether or not
What's really amazing about this is the Supreme Court could seemingly figure out that there's been a gerrymander to create these Black districts, right? But they can't figure out that there's been a gerrymander for political advantage. They say that's too hard. So they have created an environment, they've created a legal schema where they could figure out when the laws are trying to make things more fair and block them so that the things can be made more unfair and unrepresentative. And this is a 6-3 decision. This is, by the way, what happened to our, oh my God, our moderate judges, guys.
For example, the Virginia maps are going to hold, or whether Florida is going to redistrict. This adds a whole new variable into those House maps for the 2026 election. Are states going to now reconsider some of their maps in light of today's decision in ways that could even further throw the balance of power of the House of Representatives into disarray?
Lisa, stay with us. I want to bring in Barbara McQuaid. She's former U.S. attorney, also an MS Now legal analyst. Barbara, what's your reaction to this decision?
Yeah, you know, on its face, it looks a little less than I think many people had feared, because there was some concern that the majority of the court would strike down the Voting Rights Act in its entirety. Justice Alito, writing for the majority, does say that voting rights based on race is a compelling governmental interest, and as long as maps meet strict scrutiny, then those are permissible. But then they turn around and say, but this one doesn't, and that racial minorities are entitled to electing the candidates of their choice. But that doesn't mean based on race. It just means they can choose the Republican or choose the Democrat. And
because voters can vote, the district's being drawn in a way that makes their vote meaningless, and that's legitimate. So this is this is good. I actually think it would be good for more sectarianism. More sectarianism on state lines is good. I feel like the country pulling apart between states that are red states and blue states is a good idea. And we should be more ruthlessly crushing the Republicans in blue states, because that's where most of the economic activity and population is.
If these voters can do that, then there is no need for this second district that was created to provide a majority Black district. And so that might sound okay on a first blush, but I think the real disclosure of what's happening here comes in the dissent of Elena Kagan, who says that today's decision renders Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act all but a dead letter. She talks about how the Voting Rights Act was born of the literal blood of Union soldiers and civil rights marchers. And this betrays a faithful implementation of the Equal Protection Clause. So on its face, it looks sort of innocuous. She says even antiseptic. But in practice, I think this is going to mean that it's going to be impossible for minority voters to ever make out a claim under the Voting Rights Act, Section 2.
Right. And as I mentioned, I want to bring in Leah Lippman for this. The current maps that are now being thrown out were drawn after courts had ruled that the previous map didn't adequately represent the population there and was in violation of the Voting Rights Act. So what is the Supreme Court suggesting is the proper remedy? Leah,
Sorry,
can you hear me?
Is that for me or for Leah? Is that for me or for Leah?
It's for Leah.
What the Supreme Court is saying is that the Voting Rights Act actually did not require the state of Louisiana to draw an additional majority-minority district. So instead of striking down what remains of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and its protections for multiracial democracy and districting, the Supreme Court has adopted an exceptionally narrow and cramped reading of Section 2, one that will essentially almost never require states to draw additional majority-minority districts. What the court effectively said is, so long as the plaintiffs who are challenging these maps that states draw can't identify an alternative map that would both provide an additional majority-minority district and retain the same partisan composition as the state's initial map, then the state often isn't going to be required to draw that second district. The reality, however, is that there's racial polarization in voting. So race and party are inextricably linked. And what that means is it's almost never going to be
in the Deep South
possible for plaintiffs to show that a state can draw an additional majority-minority district, but that additional majority-minority district will still vote Republican in the way that the previous district would have. That's why Justice Kagan, in dissent, is writing for the Democratic appointees and calls this ruling one that renders what remains of the Voting Rights Act a nullity. She situates this latest ruling in a trilogy of cases that the Supreme Court has issued dismantling the Voting Rights Act. She says, look, back in 2013 in Shelby County versus Holder, the court effectively nullified what was the...
By the way, this is basically rule by decree because no one can vote these guys out, right? So we have decided that we wanted to have racial equality in this country. We have Supreme Court, we have amendments to the Constitution which give Congress the power to enforce equal protection of the laws. There are sections of the Constitution which give the Congress the power to regulate the time, manner, and place of elections for Congress. That's in the Constitution. So this is a multiple constitutionally approved activity by the Constitution, by the Congress. And the Supreme Court has basically made it illegal. The Supreme Court has basically undone the amendments, the ability of the Congress to pass laws enforcing the amendments to the Constitution. And they have created a kind of supra-constitutional body that's unelected. Now, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than we don't live in any form of a republic or a democracy. That's just reality.
Clearance regime, which required certain states with especially egregious histories of voting discrimination to get the federal government's permission before changing their voting laws or policies. Then, in a later decision, Brnovich versus DNC, the Supreme Court effectively made it almost impossible to challenge what are called voting preconditions, rules that affect who can vote, like a voter identification requirement. And since that decision in Brnovich, there have been zero successful Section 2 challenges to voting conditions. The decision today in Louisiana versus Calais completes the set because it effectively dismantles the last leg in the Voting Rights Act's protections, which was for redistricting. Whereas previously, the Voting Rights Act had said when a state draws districts in ways that have the effect of diluting the voting power of racial minorities, of effectively making it so racial minorities' votes count for less than white voters and that they can never elect the candidates of their choice. Now, the Supreme Court has said, go ahead, state legislatures, draw districts, maybe even redraw districts in ways that lock voters of color out of power. That is to undo the Voting Rights Act and what it did for this country, namely make it into a multiracial democracy.
Lisa, what happens now with the midterms? Does Louisiana have to create new maps?
It does. Anna, the very end of the decision says that this is going to be remanded to the district court. And by that, I take it to be a 3-judge panel in the Western District of Louisiana for further proceedings, which means that Louisiana's maps will be withdrawn. Unless Leah understands that differently, that's my understanding of today's decision. The other question, though, of course, is whether or not other states will also use today's decision as a basis to further redraw maps in their own states. It used to be that mid-decade redistricting was an anomaly, something that we never saw unless called for by a court's decision. But of course, we are now seeing across the country.
Yeah, but they don't give a shit about that. Like, do you think conservatives care about the traditions of the country? Wait, you think American conservatives care about the traditions and the normative behavior of the past? They are bloody-handed radicals who don't give a shit. This isn't even reactionary. This is, this is beyond that. This is a fascistic regime. And, listen, I've got a lot to say. I've got a lot to say that I can't say. And, God, this is one of those things that make you a little bit more, depressed because nobody is intelligent enough to get mad about this type of thing. I'm like, there's very few people that are actually intelligent enough to get mad about this. And it's not that hard to understand. That's the thing that's kind of wild to me. This is like everything in your life. The food you eat, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the roads you drive on, the housing you live in, the healthcare you get, the education you get, the children get. Like literally the fucking serum blood level of microplastics and other chemicals in your blood. This is whether or not you die of cancer or respiratory illness or heart disease. Like every element of your life has just been impacted.
Sorts of reasons for redistricting, and this Calais decision may be a pretext for other states to say, oh, wait a second, we have too many majority-minority districts that wouldn't pass muster under the new configured test for Section 2. Given how stringently the court is drawing that test, maybe we too need to configure our own districts before they're challenged in court. So I do think Louisiana's maps will be withdrawn at a minimum, and we may see some other states try to do the same in theoretical compliance with today's decision, Anna.
Some people are presenting this map as a possibility. Trying to explain this to you guys. I'm thinking about just bringing up the opinion and talking about it. Okay. It won't load. What the fuck is going on? Why is it all black? Why is my PDF viewer not working? Like there's text here, but I can't. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is there another place this is uploaded? Abortion rights, environmental protections, and now voting rights have been rolled back with this right-wing majority. We need retroactive 18-year term limits now. That means the next Democratic president will get to replace Alito, Hobbs, and Robert. I mean, I'm in favor of any of that. Whatever idea gets us to pack the Supreme Court, I'm in favor of. I honestly don't think you can rely on any of the members of the court now, and so we would need to appoint at least 10 more judges. At least 10 more judges. Despite a 40-point lead, Maine Senate candidate Graham from Maine says he hasn't heard from DNC
The Democratic
leadership.
establishment has certainly put their Kalshi money and their Polymarket money on Janet Mills, and that have you felt any sense of any curiosity? Has there been any, hey, Graham, I'm a more establishment guy. You seem to be resonating. What do you think is going on? Or do they view you again through the prism of insurgent? This insurgent must be stopped.
As of late, past few months, there's been a lot more reach out from like individual people, kind of in the like senators, honestly. I think there are a lot of senators. Now, there are a bunch of senators like Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, that whole crew, Martin Heinrich in New Mexico, who like they reached out early on and have been big supporters really the whole time.
They felt a fellow progressive who they thought, okay, I understand where this fella's coming from.
Totally. So that's been going on since the beginning. Past couple months, though, there has been more reach out from, I would say, more kind of like establishment folks. However, and this is the important part, not from the DSCC, not from the DNC, nobody in the places of power remains interested.
But they're lost, dude.
It's so bad.
They're lost.
And the thing that bothers me the most isn't I'm not asking for you to be my friend. But you should be curious because I'm pulling 40 points ahead.
Right.
At least just reach out and be like, hey, what are you actually? Because they've never spoken ever. I've never gotten a phone call. No one's ever reached out. I've never talked to anybody in leadership. No one's ever been interested in which is kind of baffling.
I think it's because they only know two stories. The two stories are this: you're either a moderate Democrat or you're a left-wing firebrand. And so what they're saying is, oh, sure, the left-wing firebrand, that does well in the primary, but that'll never travel. There is that idea that, well, electability, and there's something crazy about this, as though you are the equivalent.
See, the way the Republicans gained power is they moderated. They took the L's from Barack Obama on the chin, and they said, the voters have communicated to us that our ideas are way outside the mainstream. They've given Barack Obama 2 convincing elections. We've got to go to the left. We've got to moderate on immigration. We need to move closer to the left on abortion rights. We need to stop being so crazy on guns. Maybe have some policies like red flag laws that all parties, we've got to work across the aisle with the Democrats and moderate and become more reasonable. Maybe rein in Wall Street a little bit. Maybe raise taxes on the rich to have a balanced budget. That's what the Republicans did when they lost horrifyingly, crushingly to Barack Obama. They said, we're abandoning our base, those conservative radicals, and we're moving over to the left. Now, everybody listening to me, it's almost comical what I just described. And yet the Republicans control every part of the federal government by running to the right. How does that work? How does a country that votes for 60 Democratic senators, Barack Obama, and a bunch of Democrats suddenly decide they want to vote for a far-right firebrand in the name of Donald Trump? How does that square? How does that circle square? There's only one story that makes sense. People are desperate for change. Barack Obama didn't give it to him. He ran on it, but then he did the status quo. So after 8 years of voting for Barack Obama, they were so fed the fuck up with the fact that they couldn't get any goddamn change, they voted for the embodiment of a Molotov cocktail. So if the Democrats don't offer change, I swear to fucking God, this country should detonate. It should go the way of the dodo, the way it's going. That's the status quo. And let me tell you, if you think that Hassan Piker is radical, or AOC is radical, or Zohra Mamdani is radical, read some history books, buddy. Because when I show up, and the people to my left, we're not going to be talking about tax rates.
You're the Democratic equivalent of a MAGA loyalist who has come out with wildly controversial positions. And then you talk to you for 5 minutes, you go, oh no, this is based in historical precedent. It has a very literate and literary foundation to it. It has a foundation of lived experience. They should be, again, viewing this as a Rosetta Stone that can help them translate. And here's the trick. How do we translate those experiences to create that New Deal for a more modern America where we do get that value, where we do change the incentives of government, the way that money is spent? How do we make that transition?
This is honestly the hardest question to answer. And my answer is going to be insufficient. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. The answer to it is that we need to build political power through getting people like me into the U.S. Senate, into Congress, and we also need to do it while building organizational power outside of the system. There has never been a moment in American history where we've gotten good things just because the institutions or people in power decided to do it. They needed to be pressed.
I mean, like, honest to God, I don't know what else to say. I think, one of the silver linings of today's decision, is a lot of the most corrupt Democratic Party machines are going to fall. And that's a really good thing. It's actually a really good thing for the direction of the Democratic Party, that a lot of the most corrupt Democratic Party machines are going to go away, because there's going to be no more reason to give any money to any centrist Democrat in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. Like, those centrist Democrats there's just going to be no reason for Republican donors to give them any money. And so when those seats are up for, when we're running a Democratic primary, there's not going to be a Clyburn there in South Carolina anymore with a machine of patronage to hand out money to convince people that they have to vote for X, Y, and Z centrist scumbag. The Democratic Party will implode in those states, and that's a good thing. That's a very, very, very good thing. Who the fuck is Ken Martin? He's the head of the Democratic National Committee. And some people are like, it already has, and that's not true. Unfortunately, that's not true. I know a little bit more about how the Democratic Party operates. There's a reason why you're seeing really good candidates coming out of Maine and Michigan, right? Why are there really great candidates coming out of Maine and Michigan? The reason why there are good candidates coming out of Maine and Michigan is because the Democratic Party is not strong enough or weak enough for the establishment GOP donors to start corrupting the Democratic Party, right? If you're in a state that's super red, then they just have to corrupt a few gerrymandered seats with money. If you're in a state that's very blue, then they don't have to give any money to the Republicans, so they just focus on corrupting the Democrats. But in a state like Michigan or a state like Maine, where the Republican Party is strong, the GOP donors, they give to the GOP, which actually gives the opportunity for the Democratic Party to be a little bit more democratic, because they need all the help they can get. So they are much more loath to totally offend or repress the progressive vote, because they need it in order to win. So ironically, you're going to see more progressive leadership come out of purple states than you will out of red states or blue states. That's why California has no fucking progressives in Congress. In before people say Ro Khanna. That's why California has dog shit politics, because the Democratic Party is so strong that the GOP donors can focus on corrupting it. The corporate donors can focus on corrupting it. Republicans donate to my Democratic opponent because we are in a deep blue state. Exactly. In Maryland, for example, deep blue state, Republican donors vote to donate to centrist Democrats. These cases concern whether Louisiana's new congressional map is an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Another problem stemmed from the long unresolved question whether compliance with the Voting Rights Act provides a compelling reason that may justify the intentional use of race in drawing legislative districts. For over 30 years, the court has simply assumed for the sake of argument that the answer is yes. These and other problems convince the court that the time has come to resolve whether compliance with the Voting Rights Act can indeed be a compelling reason for race-based districting. So basically what they're saying is, we don't want to apply the Voting Rights Act anymore. Like, that's it. I totally agree, but why are there leaders like Summer Lee and hopefully Chris Robb in PA? Is PA considered purple? PA is probably the most purple state. Right now, it has one Democratic senator, one Republican senator. It has a Democratic governor. It has a Democratic state Supreme Court. It has, I think it has a Republican state Senate and a Democratic House of Reps. So I would say overall, Pennsylvania is probably the most purple state in the country. Maybe Michigan, but I feel like Michigan and Pennsylvania kind of battle each other with over the most purple. But I would say that right now, Michigan is more blue than Pennsylvania. Although I feel like we could, they battle for the most purple state. I'd argue it's Wisconsin. Wisconsin is more blue than Pennsylvania. They had a much more powerful gerrymander. So they really got and they lost some elections they shouldn't have lost because DNC sabotaged them to prevent progressives from winning. I'd say Wisconsin is more blue, in my opinion, than Pennsylvania. Although it's right there. It's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those are really the most purpley. And the other states are more like red leaning. Like, for example, Nevada used to be more blue, but is slowly becoming redder and redder and redder. Arizona was red as fuck and is becoming bluer and bluer and bluer. So like, and Georgia is the same way. Georgia used to be red, but it's becoming more and more blue. Whereas Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin have a lot of different things that are kind of canceling each other out, and they're kind of the most purple. One of the things that's kind of happening is what I would call the colonization of the white North with Republican Dixiecrat politics. Like basically white racial identity being colonized into the brain of the northern white. Like if you could get northern whites to vote like southern whites, then the Republican Party would dominate the country for generations to come. So that's kind of the battleground. It's like the type of white people. Like what are the white people in the North voting more like southern whites, or southern whites voting more like white people in the North? And the answer is the white people in the North are voting more and more like white people in the South. And that's kind of the crisis, right? Because Ohio already made that flip, right? Ohio used to be the purplest state. Florida used to be the purplest state. Florida was kind of like a colony of the North and the South. So there's all sorts of like weird shit that's going on. The Constitution almost never permits a state to discriminate on the basis of race, and such discrimination triggers strict scrutiny. Now, that's not true. The Constitution actually requires equal justice under the law, right? You look at the 14th Amendment. Oh, I'm sorry, the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendments, the so-called Reconstruction Amendments. They have to have equal protection of the law. That's not the same thing as no discrimination. I hate to be a nerd, but it doesn't actually say no discrimination. It says equal protection, which is not the same thing as no discrimination. In fact, I would argue that equal protection requires discrimination. I'll give you an example. If you are having accommodations for men and women, biological men, biological males, biological females, just leave aside the issue. I'm talking about specifically menses, right? You have to provide accommodations for women to, if they're going to work somewhere where they can take care of the fact that they go through a menstrual cycle, right? If you said, we're going to have equal, no discrimination between men and women, well, then women are biologically discriminated against because they have a menstrual cycle that requires a different type of hygiene and care than a man's body. So if you say they can't discriminate between men and women, you are actually denying women the right to equal protection. Now, when I say discriminate, I'm using it in the term as it's defined, not in the way that you think it means. I mean, actually the way it means, which means you distinguish between different things and you treat them differently based on some characteristic. And unequal treatment is not unfair treatment. Unequal treatment is not unequal protection. In fact, discriminatory treatment may actually result in equal protection. Like, this is just some, normal shit. This is like pretty fucking basic thing. And it's all altogether kind of embarrassing that the Supreme Court is this fucking stupid. And obviously, they're not stupid, right? They're not coming to this decision because they're dumb. They're coming to this decision because they are political actors, and they understand that if they have this type of ruling, it will redound to the positive benefit of America's Republican Party in a predictable way. So they're making these arguments not because they believe in them, but because they can see the consequences of their argument being beneficial for their political tribe. This is why they're saying it. The Constitution almost never permits a state to discriminate on the basis of race, and such discrimination triggers strict scrutiny. The court's precedents have identified only two compelling interests that could satisfy strict scrutiny: avoiding imminent and serious risks to human safety in prisons, and remediating specific identified instances of past discrimination that violated the Constitution or a statute. Now, the specific remedial instances that they're talking about here in the Voting Rights Act was black people being politically disenfranchised. and unable to get a proportional level of power according to their percentage of the population. The Voting Rights Act intentionally said, because of that, we want to ensure that black people get representation. So there must be created majority minority districts where black people can elect their own representatives because they've been denied representation in government for hundreds of years. Not very complicated. In fact, it's very straightforward. And as I would say, if you read the Constitution, as we just were, and it says equal protection of the laws, I would say that's doing that. That is related to that. Because again, it's not gerrymandering the state so that only black people are represented, right? It's not gerrymandering in such a way that white people have no representation. It is gerrymandering in such a way that black people get proportional representation. The question presented is whether compliance with the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act should be added to this very short list of compelling interests. Court now holds that compliance with Section 2 as properly construed can provide such an interest. A proper interpretation of Section 2 requires examining the statutory text to understand what it demands with respect to drawing legislative districts. So let's just go to the dissent. I don't give a fuck about I don't give a fuck about Alito's arguments. They're dog shit. He's a scumbag liar. And if you want to read the sophistry of these idiots, feel free. The dissent is more important because it'll explain the logic of the majority without any kind of bullshit, without any sugarcoating or obfuscation. It will cut right to the heart of the matter. Consider the story of a hypothetical congressional district in a hypothetical state, subjected to a redistricting scheme. The example is admittedly stylized, but in the essence simulates the dispute before us and clarifies the immense issues at stake. The district, let's say, in a single county in the shape of a near perfect circle sitting in the middle of a rectangular state. The state is one with a long history of virulent racial discrimination, and its many effects, including in residential segregation and political division, remain significant even today. The population of the circle district is 90% black. The rest of the state, divided into 5 surrounding districts, is 90% white. And voting throughout all of these districts is racially polarized. Black residents vote heavily for Democratic candidates, and white residents vote heavily for Republicans. The circle district thus enables the state's black community to elect a representative of its choice, whom no neighboring community would put in office. But the arrangement, in this not so hypothetical, is not to last. The state legislature decides to eliminate the circle district, slicing it into 6 pie pieces and allocating 1 each to 6 new, still solidly white congressional districts. The state's black voters are now widely dispersed, and unlike the state's white voters, lack any ability to elect a representative of their choice. Election after election, black citizens' votes are, by every practical measure, wasted. This is racial vote dilution in its most classic form. A minority community that is cohesive in its geography and politics alike and faces continued adversary from racial division is split. Cracked is the usual term, so that it loses all electoral influence. Members of the racial minority can still go to the polls and cast a ballot, but given the state's racially polarized voting, they cannot hope, and the way the state's white citizens can, to elect a person whom they think will represent their interests. Their votes matter less than others do. They translate into less political voice. Or as this court put it recently, the cracking makes a minority vote unequal to a vote by a non-minority voter. And because this is so, Congress in the Voting Rights Act made the practice illegal. Section 2 of the act guarantees that members of every racial group have an equal opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. That promise arose from a not far too prominent part of our nation's history. Even after the 15th Amendment banned racial discrimination in voting, state officials routinely deprived African Americans of their voting rights through a seemingly boundless array of mechanisms, most of them facially race neutral, and among them the drawing of district lines. States either prevented black citizens from casting ballots or ensured that their votes would count for next to nothing. The Voting Rights Act was meant as a corrective, and when this court construed it too narrowly, insisting that a person suing under Section 2 had to prove discriminatory intent, Congress amended the law so that it turns solely on discriminatory effects. Under the revised version, a person has a good Section 2 claim if the challenged state action in totality of the circumstances results in an electoral system not equally open to members of his racial group, meaning a system giving those citizens less opportunity to participate in the political process and to elect representatives of their choice. And for 40 years now, the court has recognized that language to encompass districting decisions that, in the way illustrated above, result in vote dilution, the minimizing of minority voters' ability to elect their preferred candidates, but no longer. Under the court's new view of Section 2, a state can, without legal consequence, systemically dilute minority citizens' voting power. Of course, the majority does not announce today's holding that way. Its opinion is understated, even antiseptic. Majority claims only to be updating our Section 2 law as though through a few technical tweaks. But in fact, those updates eviscerate the law so that it will not remedy even the classic example of vote dilution given above. Without a basis in Section 2 text or the Constitution, the majority formulates new proof requirements for plaintiffs alleging vote dilution. Those demands, meant to disentangle race from politics, leverage two features of modern political life: that racial identity and party preference are often linked, and politicians have free rein to adopt partisan gerrymanders. The first facts say that in a given area, black voters mainly support Democrats and white voters Republicans was viewed before today as practically an element of a vote dilution claim, because it indicates that a minority group and a politically cohesive enough to elect a preferred representative will be outvoted by the majority bloc. The second fact, the result of a particular mistake by this court, is something every day to regret, not to use as an example for stripping minority citizens of their voting rights. But under the majority's new test, when these two facts coexist, which is almost everywhere, a plaintiff cannot prevail by showing that a redistricting resulted in the dilution of voting minority power. Rather, a plaintiff will have to show, contrary to Section 2's clear text and design, that the legislators were motivated by a discriminatory purpose. And that, as Section 2's drafters knew, is well nigh impossible. So in other words, basically what the Republicans have done is that they've made it legal to be racially discriminatory in drawing of congressional districts in America, as long as you don't say it out loud. I'll say that again. The decision today makes it legal to racially draw districts as long as you don't say it out loud. As long as you don't say, we're being super racist right now. You're allowed to do whatever the fuck you want. But what do you guys think about that? Why do we have districts in 2026? Tradition. Today's ruling is part of a set. For over a decade, this court has its sights set on the Voting Rights Act. In 2013, the court made a nullity of Section 5, provision of the act enabling the Department of Justice to review and block new voting rules, including redistrictings in jurisdictions with a history of voter suppression. Congress had recently, after a lengthy study, reauthorized that pre-clearance mechanism. It found the scheme still essential to counter the protean techniques states can use to prevent minorities from exercising their fair share of political influence. This court thought it knew better. Things have changed dramatically, the court explained. Ignoring that whether things had changed dramatically enough to make the law dispensable was a question better left to its democratically accountable authors. Not surprisingly, a flood of discriminatory voting laws followed. Now only Section 2 stood in the gap. 2021, the court did half of what was needed to raise that Section 2. Section 2 prohibits not only vote diluting districting plans, but also discriminatory burdens on the casting of ballots. In a suit involving the latter type of law, the court invented a new legal standard making Section 2 useless, on the theory that the statute was too radical. Since the court ruled not a single Section 2 suit has successfully challenged such a restriction on voting, however discriminatory in operation. And finally, today, the last piece, Section 2 as applied to redistricting. The last and truly the hardest. For just 3 terms ago, the court upheld a vote dilution challenge to a redistricting map in a case much like this one, preserving Section 2 as a tool to prevent racially discriminatory redistricting. Nothing has changed in the 3 years since, yet today, the majority does revise and reformulate and destroy. It avails itself again of the tools used before to dismantle the act. Untenable readings of statutory text, made up and impossible to meet evidentiary requirements, disregard for precedent, and disdain for congressional judgment. And in that way, it greenlights redistricting plans that will disable minority communities in Louisiana and across the nation from electing, as majority communities can, representatives of their choice. But if the districts in which minority citizens exercise voting power are sliced up, and the pieces appended to the districts in which they can play no meaningful role. The majority tells us that the inability to make out a Section 2 claim will be a mark of the nation's progress and therefore cause for celebration. I dissent. The Voting Rights Act is, or now more accurately was, one of the most consequential, effectacious, and amply justified exercises of federal legislative power in our nation's history. It was born of the literal blood of Union soldiers and civil rights marchers. It ushered in awe-inspiring change, bringing the nation closer to fulfilling the ideals of democracy and racial equity. And it has repeatedly and overwhelmingly reauthorized by the people's representatives in Congress. Only they have the right to say it is no longer needed, not the members of this court. I dissent from this latest chapter in the majority's now completed demolition of the Voting Rights Act. I mean, like, I don't know what else to say, man. What can you even say? She goes on to explain, she goes through the entire legislative and legal history. If you're curious, if you've never read a decision, I encourage you to go and check it out. I don't know what else to say. Let me just finish the conclusion. The consequences are likely to be so far-reaching and grave that today's decision renders Section 2 all but a dead letter. In the states where the law continues to matter, the states still marked by residential segregation and racial polarized voting, minority voters can now be cracked out of the electoral process. The decision here is about Louisiana's District 6, but it's also about Louisiana District 2. And so too it is about the many other districts, particularly in the South, that in the last half century have given minority citizens, particularly African Americans, a meaningful political voice. After today, those districts exist only on sufferance, and probably not for long. If other states follow Louisiana's lead, the minority citizens residing there will no longer have an equal opportunity to elect candidates of their choice, and minority representation in government institutions will sharply decline. At the first stage of this judicial project to destroy the Voting Rights Act, the court maintained that Section 5 was no longer needed because in recent decades, African Americans attained political office in record numbers. At this stage, court's gutting of Section 2 puts that achievement in peril. I dissent because Congress elected otherwise. I dissent because the court betrays its duty to faithfully implement the great statute Congress wrote. I dissent because the court's decision will set back the foundational right Congress granted of racial equality and electoral opportunity. I dissent. I mean, ultimately, I want to say something, one more thing before we move on, but we are no longer in a period where you can hang back. We are in a period where you either grab a gun, a metaphorical gun, and you go to war. If we are ever going to take power again, the next two elections are our last chance. And I mean this, our last chance to correct the path that this country's on. Like, we are very close to an anocracy where the elections are pretty much unwinnable. Republicans are constructing electoral levies that could stop a blue wave of 10, 15, or even 20 points. And there are just 30% of America that is just intractably racist and fascistic. Either we take severe steps to correct this shit, and we do so immediately and without remorse and without hesitation, or else this country is fucking finished. I mean, people talking about, Mike, the problem is the Dem Party is infiltrated too. You don't fucking say. You don't fucking say. Something that I've been fighting against for literally over a decade now. You don't think that I know that? You don't think that I've been fighting against this and trying to persuade people that we need our own Labor Party or our own, Green Party, whatever the fuck you want to call it, our own Socialist Party? You don't think I've been trying?
This is Democracy Now!
All right, Jeremy Scahill is talking about
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman on the road to Rochester, New York. Negotiations between the United States and Iran to end the war are at an impasse as the conflict reaches its 61st day. President Trump and his national security team are reportedly skeptical of Iran's proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for tabling nuclear talks. U.S. officials say President Trump expressed doubts Monday that Iran was acting in good faith. Iran has so far refused Trump's key demand that it end all nuclear enrichment. The Wall Street Journal reported late Tuesday that Trump has told aides to prepare for an extended blockade of Iranian ports to ramp up the pressure on Tehran. In his latest post on Truth Social, Trump threatened Iran to, quote, better get smart soon. Earlier on Tuesday, Trump wrote, quote, Iran has just informed us that they're in a state of collapse, unquote. They want us to open the Hormuz Strait as soon as possible as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do, President Trump said. This is Brigadier General Mohammad Akraminia, a spokesperson for the Iranian army.
Regarding the current situation, we have not considered the war to be over. From the day the fighting stopped and, in effect, a ceasefire or silence took place on the battlefield, since there is no trust in the United States and our enemies, we have continued in the same way as during the war, making serious efforts to update our list of targets.
And this is U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth speaking at a Pentagon news conference last Friday.
Iran knows that they still have an open window to choose wisely. As we said previously, choose wisely at the negotiating table. All they have to do is abandon a nuclear weapon in meaningful and verifiable ways, or instead they can watch their regime's fragile economic state collapse under the unrelenting pressure of American power.
For more on all of this, we're joined now by Dropsite News co-founder Jeremy Scahill. His new piece is headlined, As Trump's narrative on negotiations flails, Iran is setting its own terms for ending the war. Hi, Jeremy. Can you start off by just explaining the thesis of your piece?
Well, you know, what I've been reporting over the past several weeks is that far from being in disarray, as Trump and his allies in the media have portrayed the Iranian government, it's the Trump administration that is in a state of total chaos, erratic meltdowns, that culminated with Trump claiming that J.D. Vance was on an airplane en route to Islamabad to meet the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, then saying that Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and special envoy Steve Witkoff, they're actually on the airplane, and they were claiming, the Iranians are begging us to talk, and we're going to go and meet them in Islamabad when Foreign Minister Araghchi is there. The Iranians were telling me we have no intention of meeting any Americans, and that Iran is on its own tour now of Pakistan, Oman, and Russia, where Araghchi met with President Vladimir Putin, and we're establishing our own terms for ending the war. And so what we've seen here is the construction of a total propaganda narrative that is being repeated by almost every Western news organization, that somehow there are these negotiations going on, that the Iranians are putting proposals in front of the Americans. That's not what's happening at all. What Iran has done is it has briefed Pakistan, which is currently the mediating country in the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, and they've said to them, here are our conditions for ending the war. And what Iran is saying is, we will enter into direct talks with the United States when President Trump lifts what Iran considers to be the illegal military naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. We will have an initial round of discussions about how to facilitate the expansion of commerce and transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has maintained that it's not shut down the strait, but that it's just shut it down for any vessels that are linked to the U.S. war in any way. And then after those conditions are met, the Iranians will go back to direct talks having to do with nuclear negotiations. But they're saying that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are total ignoramuses when it comes to the technical issues in terms of nuclear or other issues, that having Kushner at the table might as well be having Benjamin Netanyahu at the table. That's part of why they pushed for J.D. Vance. Iranians told me that they witnessed during the last round of direct talks a division between J.D. Vance on the one hand and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff on the other hand. Trump has painted himself into a corner. He's certainly in a quagmire. The administration is desperate to find some form of an off-ramp, and they have been pushing a lie-filled propaganda narrative that has been picked up by media across the board that somehow the Iranians are kind of adjusting their position and coming back to Trump, but it's not good enough yet. The reality is that Trump has no idea how he's going to end this because the Iranians know, or they believe, that they have the 3 M's on their side: munitions, markets, and the midterms. They think that they have done unprecedented damage to U.S. defensive capabilities in the Persian Gulf. They caused the evacuation of 13 American military bases. They committed widespread damage against American aircraft that only now is starting to come to light. They destroyed the early warning, highly expensive radar systems. The Israelis' interceptors are at dangerous low levels, and the United States is unable to confront Iran's asymmetric posture in the Strait of Hormuz, no matter what Trump does. The markets are in free fall right now, relatively speaking. It's not going to get better. If Trump starts bombing Iran again, they say they're going to hit oil infrastructure in the Persian Gulf, potentially cut under...
Whoa! Brent crude is just starting to touch 120. And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That's a all-time high going back quite a while now. We have to go back to 2022. It briefly went higher than that. So yeah, we are near some of the most expensive oil has ever been. Yay! Yay! Great job, Chief. We're doing it. New 52-week high today, man. That was really stupid how the markets, remember how Iran said the Strait of Hormuz was open? That was really dumb. They shouldn't have done that. That was really dumb of them to tweet that, because it gave Donald Trump another few weeks to negotiate. Great job, dipshit. Now, I originally thought that they were going to invade. I thought they were going to invade Iran 2 weeks ago, but I kind of feels like they're going to invade. It feels like my larger call that they're going to invade Iran is still a go. It still feels like it might actually happen. Like, there is proof that the U.S. blockade is literally a taco blockade. Only a few ships have been seized or boarded by the U.S. have gone through. 52 have gone through in the last 72 hours. Those are Iranian ships. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, except to Iranian ships. And I don't know if you know this, but most of the oil is not from Iran, bro. 52 Iranian vessels have crossed the U.S. employed blockade of Iranian waters within a 72-hour period, according to Iran's news agency. So if you could show me regular non-Iranian aligned ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, then I'll change my mind. But the oil markets are now at a record high. Congratulations, dipshit, you did it. This sounds bad. Hey guys, I think that guys. I guess they decided the ceasefire was bullshit after all. Seems bad, guys. Amazing. And what's American crude at? American crude 106. It was 100 earlier this morning. Oh, whoa. How should people who bought EVs feel right now? Well, it depends on where you're getting your electricity, because I assume electricity rates are probably going to be going up a bit as well. But yeah, I know you're fucking golden, because like gas prices are going up. So oil prices have rarely been this high, chat. And so in the last 5 years, it was only, again, they had that spike back in the peak of inflation. It was up around 120. So we're now heading back in that area. You'd have to go back to the prices of the Great Recession. Cool. How does this end? Why did it start? Why the fuck did it start? The answer is Israel wanted it. Because Israel wants to take out Iran, because they foolishly believe that if Iran is like destroyed, then they'll be able to like annex the territory of their neighbors, because they'll be the new regional superpower, and they'll be able to complete their genocide or whatever the fuck. I think people are missing why this is such a problem. The WTI was trading below 100. Yeah, we've been talking about this the last like 3 months. The oil has been trading around that $100. Every time it came to $100 a barrel, it kind of like bounced off. You see how it bounced off like 3 times? 1, 2, then it spiked, and then it dipped off of the Trump saying we're having ceasefire now. War is almost over. And then it keeps doing this where it like starts to rise to 100 and then it crashes. Now we're well past 100. So something has changed, and it's rising as we're talking. Guys, I don't think this is good. Stock market is starting to go a little bit poopy. It was up earlier in the day. 8 states don't make for good or stable regional powers that have any longevity. I mean, what can you even say? What can you even say? Seems bad. You know, seems bad. We haven't had prices this. Oh, is this? Oh, okay. So 122, chat. 122. That's the highest price of the last 5 years. The only time it's been higher than that will be back in the Great Recession. Back in the Great Recession when it spiked really, really hard. So 122, that's the next. That'll be, if it breaches 122, it'll be the highest the prices have been in 5 years. It should easily pass. I mean, bro, you're asking me now. You're asking me, and it's like, I thought it should have been passed here 3 weeks ago. I thought there was absolutely no justification for believing that there was going to be a ceasefire. Like, I don't understand this. Like, this whole rise of the stock market, this I understood. This I didn't understand. Like, well, this is crazy. The economy is not safe. And it was all based on Trump tweets. So until the stock market crashes back down to 45,000 in the Dow, until we see that correction number again, what do you want me to say? And again, Donald Trump is probably going to tweet tomorrow, ceasefire happening. We're about to have a ceasefire. Ceasefire is happening now. Where I live, gas is already $4.50 a gallon. You mean $4.50? Does anyone have the resource Mike ranks? Oh yeah, sure. It's called the Left Vote Tracker. You can have it. I don't care. Here you go. It opens on the Senate, but at the bottom is a tab for the House. And you can scroll. So there's like 2 sections. The first is a sponsor score. So these are the major left-wing bills. So if somebody is a sponsor of these bills, meaning a co-author of these bills, they get extra bonus points, which are Medicare for All, Block the Bombs Act, College for All, ultra-millionaire tax, and recognizing the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. And then you have the votes. And you can go through and see all the votes that are scored. They have the bill and the date of the vote. And you can go and check. You can see why you're mad. Also at the top, there's a percentage of people that voted for something, right? Of Democrats. So a number that is lower means few people voted for it that were voted the correct way. There you go. There's the spreadsheet. What else are we saying? Are we having a little bit of a dip today? Are we dipping toward close? Doesn't look good. Can you please make a command that links to the spreadsheet? Maybe. The Pentagon will send the USS Gerald R. Ford home in the coming days after a 10-month deployment. Yeah, I mean, it had a fire. It's pretty fucked.
Internet cables, which would massively disrupt commerce and internet. And the final thing is the midterms coming up. This is a political disaster for Donald Trump. And the Iranians feel like they're in a position that Trump is not holding the cards. And so what they're saying is, if you don't meet our initial demands to lift your illegal naval blockade, we're not going to have any talks with you anytime soon because you've painted yourself into a corner, and we're going to sit back and let you continue to have less and less space in that corner.
Jeremy, you note that the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has been on a strategic 3-nation tour where he's unequivocally laying out Tehran's position to mediators and key strategic players who may influence future negotiations. You write, quote, Russia played a key role in the 2015 nuclear deal and could emerge as an important guarantor of Tehran's interests in any agreement reached with the U.S. I want to ask you about Russia's role in this, but first, let's go to a clip. This is Russian President Vladimir Putin, followed by the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in St. Petersburg Monday.
I would like to convey my most sincere words of gratitude and confirm that Russia, same as Iran, intends to continue our strategic relations. We see how courageously and heroically the Iranian people are fighting for their independence and sovereignty. Of course, we very much hope that, based on this courage and will for independence, the Iranian people will, under the leadership of a new leader, make it through this difficult period of trials, and peace will follow. From our side, we will do everything that is in your interest, in the interests of all nations in the region, so that peace is reached as soon as possible. You know our position very well.
I was asked to confirm during this visit that Russian-Iranian relations is a strategic partnership and will remain that way moving forward. It was proven that Iran has friends and allies, such as Russia, who stand by Iran during difficult times and support Iran. We thank you for your firm position in support of Iran.
So that was the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi. Before that, Russian President Putin. Jeremy, talk about what Putin's position is now. And back in 2015, it may surprise people.
Right. So back in 2015, when the U.S., with a delegation led by John Kerry, the Secretary of State at the time, spent a year and a half negotiating with the Iranians, and that deal ended with 25,000 pounds of enriched uranium being transferred from Iran to Russia. Now, at that point, the Iranians only had a relatively small quantity of what's called highly enriched uranium, and it was only enriched to a 20% level, and 98% of that highly enriched uranium was shipped to Russia. It's astonishing to think back on it and those numbers, given what we're talking about now, which is roughly 1,000 pounds the Iranians are believed to have of highly enriched uranium, potentially to as high as 60%. And so the Iranians, because of Trump's threatening, kind of menacing tone and actions, and certainly because of the 6 weeks of bombing, has said, we're not going to transfer any uranium outside of the country, that it's as sacred to us as our soil, and that we would agree to dilute it so that it could be used for medical and non-military purposes, but transferring it is out of the equation. What's interesting is that I've heard from Iranian sources that if the Iranians felt like they were dealing with normal people on the other end of the table, technical experts, and not real estate buddies and the son-in-law of the president, but if they were dealing with like an actual technical team, as they did back in 2015, that a lot of issues could be on the table. And so part of what may be happening is that the Iranians, on the one hand, want to strengthen their military and political relationship with the Russians. It goes both ways. The Iranians also provide the Russians with drones that are used in the war in Ukraine. The Russians almost certainly have been providing the Iranians with intelligence during the course of the U.S.-Israeli war. But on the other hand, the Iranians are planning a kind of other...
I mean, here's what you have to understand. America is not normal. So stop treating America like a normal country. Stop treating America like a country that you can make an agreement with and that agreement will be enforced. There are no agreements. America has no agreements. There are no restrictions. America does what it wants. If you agree to do something for America in exchange for a promise, you just got suckered. We might decide to keep the promise if it's in our benefit to keep you doing what you're doing, but that's a transactional decision. We have no honor. Our country breaks its word. It abandons countries. It does not give a shit about your promises or whatever promises were made. So the only way you can interact with the United States of America is in a transactional manner where you exchange something at the exact same time as you get something. That'll work. But outside of that, it's crazy to trust the United States completely.
Scenario where if there is a sane set of discussions on the nuclear issue, would there be some flexibility? I've heard that there are possibilities that they could consider Russia or even China if they did shift their position, which officially they've given no indication they will. But if that becomes a sort of sticking point and Iran feels that it's getting its own concessions in the form of a widespread lifting of sanctions, a backing off or some kind of non-aggression pact that would certify that the U.S. isn't going to continue this pattern of launching wars in between pretending to be in negotiations with Iran, then the sense that I get is that a lot would be on the table. So I think that the Iranians are also looking at an alternative universe where Donald Trump fabricates some declaration of victory, that he tries to intensify the economic war against Iran in the hopes that they can spark a domestic uprising to bring down the government, and that Trump essentially just panics himself into a state of saying, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. That's one scenario that could happen. Joe Kent, who resigned as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, early on after he resigned weeks ago, he came out and said that Trump should essentially do that, kind of walk away. way. I was told by a senior Iranian official that they think the most likely long-term scenario is that there isn't any major agreement reached and that there is kind of a low-intensity tension that continues to boil. And so, you know, the Iranians feel, though, that time is on their side and that it's Donald Trump who has the clock and that he's watching it with sweat increasingly pouring down his face because Iran has no intention of capitulating. So there's dual tracks that the Iranians are operating on. And I just want to emphasize again that when you read these reports about the Iranians have put a new proposal forward, etc., much of what the Iranians...
By the way, Chad, I forgot the shill. Fuck, we're 4 hours into the stream. Shit. I'm pulled all over the place. I'm sorry about that, chat. I forgot the shill. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the stream by subscribing. It's near the end of the month, so any kind of support you give me goes a long way. We're kind of close to 7,000. We're at 6,813. So that would be pretty nice. That would be pretty nice. Hammond Fist, thank you for the 20 tier ones. I appreciate you. Remember, chat, I run no ads. I have no sponsors. The only sponsors I have are you, which means that I'm only beholden to you. And if you've ever said anything I don't like in chat, you understand that I don't hold back. So if you enjoy this type of content, if you want to see other leftist content creators continue to grow, please consider supporting the stream by subscribing. Also, the other thing that's really cool is, how do I put this? Hassan Piker, he is becoming the enemy, which means there's a new opportunity for me. Wait until people start giving my hottest takes on Fox News. Oh, no. Oh, fuck. Oh, no. I'm not nearly as popular. Oh, no, 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 no. Big Sick Brain. Thanks you, man. Thanks for this up. Calm Like a Tom. Chat, we are dangerously close to a hype train. Calm Like a Tom gave 20. Hammond Fist gave 20. Rod D. Danger gave 1. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got a hype train. Slamwise, thank you for the 5 tier 1. Appreciate you. Remember, chat, the top sub gifter and the top bit donor get the Hype Train conductor badge next to their name. Let's keep going.
Have been doing is reiterating their position. They feel that the United States did not understand the significance of what they put on the table back in February, that it would have gone beyond the 2015 nuclear agreement. And I think it's pretty clear at this point that Israel has thoroughly contaminated what the U.S. believes is intelligence on Iran. And it seems quite clear that throughout this war, and actually before it, the Israelis were presenting completely cooked intelligence that it was going to be easy, that it's going to be a cakewalk, that you just assassinate the leadership and the people are going to rise up. It's not just that Israel has political influence. It's clear that Israel has contaminated the intelligence gathering and presentation to the president of the United States by constantly injecting politicized fake intel to try to keep this war going or to start it in the first place.
On Monday, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said he had become disillusioned with the U.S. and Israel over the war in Iran and said the Trump administration is being outwitted and humiliated. This is Merz.
Die Amerikaner haben offensichtlich keine Strategie.
The Americans clearly have no strategy, and the problem with conflicts like this is always that you don't just have to go in, you also have to get out again. We saw that all too painfully in Afghanistan for 20 years. We saw it in Iraq. An entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian state leadership.
Jeremy Scahill, your response.
I mean, on just a factual level, what Chancellor Merz is saying is 100% true. But in real political terms, Merz was a supporter of Donald Trump's actions. Germany, perhaps second only to the United States, has passionately supported and defended the Israeli genocidal operations in Palestine, specifically in Gaza, and these broader wars. And Merz kissed the ring of Donald Trump from the very beginning. He bowed to him and allowed himself to be walked around the block by the Trump world like a poodle. So Merz has no credibility whatsoever. But the fact that even the poodles of the United States, like Friedrich Merz of Germany, the fact that they are saying this openly and saying that the U.S. is being humiliated is a strong indicator of how the sort of game is up. The world realizes that Trump has been lying to manipulate markets, to try to resurrect the oil market situation, to try to pretend.
That's exactly what I've been saying. Like, Donald Trump has just been lying about these talks in order to delay the reckoning in the stock market and the oil market. And the reckoning is approaching because sooner or later, the oil is going to start to run out and the prices are going to go up. And Donald Trump has managed to torture the animal spirits and the delusion of the markets to the maximum possible degree. But sooner or later, that is going to end.
As though he's winning because he keeps thinking he's going to bomb the Iranians into submission with his tough boy act on Truth Social. It's not working. And in fact, markets this week, even for the first time in this attempt at manipulation, they didn't even react to the bald-faced lie that Trump told yesterday, where he said the Iranians are saying that they're on the verge of collapse and they want Trump to open up the Strait of Hormuz. That didn't happen. And the markets did not react in the way that they typically have to Trump's manipulation every Monday morning. So I think the world is realizing what Mertz, who often is a poodle of the United States, particularly Trump, Mertz is saying the quiet part out loud because it's so obvious that to deny it would make you look like an absolute idiot.
On Saturday, the Iranian Red Crescent Society said it submitted evidence to the International Criminal Court documenting U.S.-Israeli war crimes. The IRCS estimates more than 132,000 civilian structures were bombed across Iran, including hospitals, apartment buildings, universities, research facilities, and bridges. How is Iran dealing with its own reconstruction and economic crisis?
It's very difficult. I mean, I think we don't fully understand the extent of the damage and destruction that has been wrought inside of Iran. And, you know, the Iranians, of course, do have a difficult time in importing goods. But I will note something quite significant. After Abbas Araghchi left Pakistan last weekend, when Trump claimed...
Did I see the MERS thing? Yeah. This is Germany, guys. Germany slashes welfare state to fund rearmament. To fight who? Who are we fighting, Germany? You're going to fight Russia? That's what you're going to do? You're fighting Russia?
They were going to be meeting with the Americans, and then it didn't happen, just as the Iranians said it wouldn't. Pakistan announced that it was going to, effective immediately, implement a directive that would facilitate a dramatic expansion of transit across Pakistan for third country goods delivering to Iran. What that is part of is the bilateral relationship between Iran and Pakistan, and it's a direct answer to Trump saying that he's strangling Iran. So this meeting with the Russians, this trade deal that now has been put into force with the Pakistanis to give free passage to third nation goods coming into Iran, the deepening relationship between Iran and China, which has largely unfolded in secret away from cameras, and then Iran's now outreach in the Persian Gulf is very clearly Iran imagining a world where this doesn't get resolved right away, and that Iran certainly survives intact with its state, its government, its power structure very much in control of Iran, and they're looking for an alternative to a full solution or resolution with the United States. That's going to be a key thing to watch. Iran is not just operating on some desperate track to try to make a deal with the United States. You know, this is a real nation state. This isn't just some, paper tiger.
Oh my God, chat. As we were talking about that stupid fucking... Okay, hold on.
That the U.S. can assassinate some people and do heavy bombing and then they collapse. This is a country of institutions. Whatever anyone thinks about Iran, they've spent 47 years building institutions that have parallel infrastructure. I don't think there is a historical precedent for having basically the entire upper echelons of political, military, and religious leadership assassinated and then turn around and do 6 to 7 weeks of retaliatory strikes that fought the world superpower to a standstill. There isn't a historical precedent for what we're seeing. And I think now the United States and Trump's advisors understand they have to take this seriously. And Iran is operating on a totally different path that presumes that they aren't going to have a political resolution to this crisis or conflict with the United States.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube.
All right, chat. Ultimate Mike from PA victory. Mr. Beast tweeted, "Everyone on Earth takes a private vote by pressing a red or blue button. If more than 50% of people press the blue button, everyone survives. If less than 50% of people press the blue button, only people who press the red button survive. Which button would you press? Be honest." Blue won. And this, ladies and gentlemen, all politics can basically be reproduced in this vote. This is politics in a nutshell. The majority of humanity is not a frightened little worm. Unfortunately, a very large minority is. Just enough to fuck everything up. God damn it. You know what I think would be a really cool idea, chat? Is if you set up a button and like in real life, you did this test where it was like red or blue button and it was secret. But underneath the red button was like a credit card scanner and it would scan you for like $100. So every time you push the red button, you would actually have $100 deducted from your bank account. I think that would be legitimately cool. Oh, that would be legitimately cool. I think I hate everybody who pushes red. Latest Asmongold drop.
Like, so I wake up, I usually have breakfast and I eat beef jerky. And then during my stream, I usually eat more beef jerky. And then after my stream, I eat candy and then beef jerky. And then after that, I have Chipotle. And then after that, I have ice cream. Healthy. Yeah, Chipotle's delicious, right? So I was eating so much Chipotle and so, because it has like the amount of salt that it has. Have you seen the amount of salt it has?
Probably a lot.
80% of like just one bowl of Chipotle. So I had my blood pressure taken, right? And it said my high score was 193.
A good score.
That was really high. My mom's was over 200. But
I had mine taken recently, chat. I think mine was 80 and 120, whichever the one is the correct one for that. 59 beats a minute, 80 over 120, 120 over 80. Yeah. He's gonna die. Gonna die young. Oh, by the way, chat, we've got some more videos on the okay. I actually have to go early. Sorry, chat. I'd love to stick around. Thank you guys for the hype train and all the support. You guys are the best. Fortunately, I have to go. I have to take care of VO. And also I have to record a podcast. So I got a busy day. Unfortunately, I had to do a short stream. Thank you guys, gals, non-binary pals for coming. Don't forget, if you want more Mike from PA content, go to the Reaction Podcast. We have our next episode with Sam Cedars dropping soon for our Patreons. So make sure to join the Patreon. Got a new episode with Samuel Cedar on Tim Pool. So make sure that you check that out. Here, let me link this more because it only went linked once. Here, spam this. New episodes are coming out. Just had our episode on Joe Rogan. So come check out the Reaction Podcast. All right, who's live right now? Fuck it. I'm gonna send you all over to the mothership. Because if there's one streamer defending Hassan, that means that I'm still streaming. If there's 0 streamers defending Hassan, that means I'm dead. All right, everybody, stay safe. Solidarity forever. See y'all soon. Sorry I had to cut it short today. But free Palestine, and we're all gonna die. What's going on? Like commodities? What's going on? All right, everybody. See you soon. Peace out. Have a wonderful rest of your day.